Welcome back to another FPL reaction stream. We'll be looking ahead to Game Week 12 and discussing all the action over this weekend. And there is a lot to dissect, a few injury doubts already heading into the international break. And for once I had a decent week, at least in the last couple, but still not that great. I have gone up from around 900,000 to 647k as things stand. So 69 points all out, no bonus points from today's games at all, if I'm not mistaken. And I think the bulk of it really came yesterday. So yeah, I don't think Sunday went particularly well for me, but last week it was the opposite, where I had a poor Saturday, and then of course on the Sunday I got a lot of points in the process. I finally nailed the captaincy on with Mohamed Salah, and it's good to have him in my team. I made the bold decision, can even call that, to sell Erling Haaland, who was going to be my captain if I'd stuck with him, but in the end he only got 5 points. He scored the opening goal in half an hour, missed a few big chances, hit the post as well, and you were kind of getting that feeling he could score 2 or 3 against Brighton. But then that silly yellow towards the very end of the game, and of course Brighton turned it around, Joao Pedro being the star of the show. There's a lot to dissect. Let's get straight into things, and thank you to those that are tuning in. Smash the like button and subscribe for new, and if we hit the super chat goal, we will continue this for even longer, answering additional questions for FPL, UCL Fantasy, and you name it. There is more to life than football, believe it, and it's a good thing there is, otherwise we would be doomed. Let's go into the live chat straight away. Hopefully everything is working. For some reason, the live chat looks very different for me now, but Gary kicks things off and he says, another week is nearly done. A green arrow on the way for a change, 67 points. I'm glad to hear it, Gary. Even if you've had a tough start to the season, it can happen. There's still a lot of football to be played, and I wouldn't look too much into rank right now, but preferably, of course, we'd be doing well all the time. Unfortunately, though, it isn't always the case. Cylindra says, hey Dylan, terrible game week with the captaincy on Haaland and also my team losing again, ended on 61 points and a red arrow down to 112k. Still a good rank. The points isn't actually too bad. I think I was asked this yesterday in the deadline stream, do you think it's going to be a high scoring week? I actually thought it would be. I got a few comments saying I think it's going to be low scoring. I thought the opposite. I thought the average would be around 55 basically, and that's what ended up happening. Thankfully, I got the rub of the green. I mean, Salah's goal is very fortuitous. Of course, Diego Carlos made a huge mistake. Salah capitalised, and he has been incredible this season. Sometimes you need that sort of luck in FPL as well. Only good thing is got 4 free transfers to change my team, and hopefully City can bounce back after the break. I still think City can, but the absence of Rodri is huge, and I think Liverpool are in a really good position right now to take advantage, and currently they would be the title favourites, but I do think City will definitely make a comeback, especially Spurs up next. They're going to leak so many chances. I can't see City going another game without winning. I just don't see it. I also think Arsenal will go on a run, but I mean, I made my feelings clear on Twitter and Instagram already about Arsenal. I think I'm kind of switched off from the season already, not really anticipating anything. For me, all that matters is the trophies and the Premier League title. I very much doubt Arsenal can do it. Of course, with the players coming back and the fixture run they have until April, there is still a chance, but I'd be much more confident in Man City, who have proven it time after time again. Easy99 says, told you that Ipswich beat Spurs will be biggest shock result this week. You did, to be fair. Fair play to you. I did not expect it. I thought Spurs would win by 3 or 4 at least. I actually went for 5-1 in my prediction, so happy that wasn't the case, but can't even celebrate it, to be quite honest with you. 46 points overall, no good points returned, but bold transfer moves from Bernardo Silva to Damsgaard pay off. I remember that when Damsgaard scored, I was thinking about what you said, so I'm happy that transfer went really well. I still don't like him too much long term, especially when Brentford's fixtures turn for the worse, but it's a very good punt that you made there. Kanate for me right now for buy, wait and see. Yeah, Kanate is in my watch list. I'll be talking about him in my team selection, transfer plans, and transfer tips videos, so keep your eyes peeled for those. Is it time to load up on United assets? No. Of course, Ruben Amorim could make a massive impact from Game Week 12 onwards, but there are some uncertainties. On the wildcard recently, in Game Week 10 and 11, for those best wildcard videos, I have recommended a Nana in goal or a cheap defender like Mazraoui, coupled with a Garnacho, and possibly looking at Bruno Fernandes in the midfield, but I certainly wouldn't triple up. I think 1 or 2 is fine. Remember, United have some tough fixtures from Game Week 14 onwards, like Arsenal. So, look, maybe United will win that game. Who knows at this point, but I don't think the long-term fixtures are that great. It's kind of mixed bag when you look at the next 5-6, but the likes of Bruno Fernandes, Mazraoui, Dalot, and Onana are really good choices. I still like Garnacho, but throughout the season, his main issue is the minutes and rotating with Rashford and Amad Diallo, who of course got the assist today. I should have captained Bruno instead of Son. Yeah, I thought Son would be the best captain, and he created 2 big chances today, so I was wrong about Heung-min Son, but thankfully Salah, who was second in my captaincy list, delivered, and I actually captained him, so that is a refreshing change for once, but I think all of us are shocked by Spurs only scoring 1 goal against Ipswich Town, and them going 2-0 down is actually just a huge shock as well. Dalap was the star of the show, of course, despite getting booked. He got the goal and the assist. Yeah, I think with Heung-min Son, though, very disappointing recently. A lot of hype, of course, especially after the goal against West Ham, then the contentious assist, which was added, then removed, then the minutes against Aston Villa. It's kind of been a roller coaster for Heung-min Son owners, and I could see a lot of them looking to sell now. Garnacho will get a lot of game time under Amorim. Yeah, I agree, but it's still not a guaranteed start week in, week out. That remains to be seen. But over the years, I think Garnacho will establish himself, and eventually Rashford will be phased out, and we'll see Diallo and Garnacho as the starting wingers. But this season, I could still see some problems there. Hi Dylan, what is Garnacho's hopes of playing time with new manager Amorim? So I kind of agree with Arthur. I think Garnacho will get a lot of game time, but I think every 3-4 games he will be benched. It's difficult to tell. A lot of people have been, advising me that they believe Ruben Amorim will play this 3-4-2-1 formation he does at Sporting. I still think he might be a bit flexible, at least to begin with, and go to a back four. I think the 4-2-3-1 might suit Man United best, but we just don't know yet, and I think that remains to be seen. But ultimately, if it is a 3-4-2-1, is there the possibility that Garnacho plays as a wing-back? I very much doubt it, but it isn't impossible. So I personally think Garnacho will start most games this season, perhaps even more than he did under Van Nistelrooy and Ten Hag combined, but not nailed on. I think Bruno Fernandes is the only attacker I'd kind of rely on for consistent minutes and potentially returns if he continues this as well. Gabriel to Konate. I don't know, maybe I'm being bullish and foolish about Arsenal. I mean, the amount of space they gave Pedro Neto today is embarrassing. I still think Gabriel, Raya, and Arsenal defenders are worth holding on to. Now, if you've got a double up, I certainly don't mind diversifying your defence. I just think Arsenal are still worth investment in that position. They will improve, and I think with the fixture run now coming to an end, the kind of poor one they had until now, I do think things will ease up a little bit more. And as predicted, and as I mentioned yesterday, I do think Forest will drop off. We saw that today against Newcastle. Quite surprising, actually, the way they lost, but I do think Gabriel will come good. Having said that, if I'm buying one right now, undoubtedly it would be Konate. I'm looking at the Frenchman myself, but I think Gabriel will live to fight another day in my own setup. Brilliant. Jackson isn't suspended for the Leicester game. In my opinion, he should have been booked, but he didn't. He made a few dives, and I think he made 1 foul. So he was a bit lucky, actually, not to be booked. I think most of those yellow cards he gets are from dissent, arguing with the referee and stuff. Easy99 says, is losing Rodri causing Man City to lose 4 matches in a row? I think it's the biggest reason, but you can't just rely on one player, and people said the same thing about Arsenal, rightfully so, in recent weeks. You've got to find a way to adapt, and City are usually so good at doing that. Guardiola is the best manager in world football, but it's a big issue because their other options in Rodri's position are nowhere near good enough physically and also defensively. They might be good on the ball like Kovacic, but they don't have anywhere near the kind of defensive nous as a Rodri does. I think it makes a massive impact, but City are conceding too many big chances. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give them a pass and say, it's just because of that. I think there are other reasons, and they're conceding 6 big chances to Sporting, 8 to Brighton, and I believe 6 to Bournemouth. That's simply not on. Compare that to Liverpool, who have been so impressive this season. I think you can also look at the manager and also the personnel to kind of improve things there. Dylan, Mazraoui or Dallo? A slight preference for Mazraoui, but I do believe Dallo is a little bit more nailed on, so to speak. I think when Shaw is back, Mazraoui is more likely to drop to the bench from time to time compared to Dallo, who can play on both flanks, and you could argue Mazraoui can too, but I do think Dallo, maybe the Portuguese connection, and just as consistent minutes for United in the last couple of years, I do believe Dallo might be safer, but if I'm picking one right now, I'd probably just go for Mazraoui. 61 points for this game week, decent score. I'd say I'm really glad I sold Palland. Yeah, I think 60 plus is decent, but if you're in a high rank, it might be a red arrow, so you're a bit disappointed. But trust me, if you got 60 plus, I think you've done relatively okay. I thought I was cheeky captaining Mbeumo over Salah. Safe to say it was a horrendous choice. But Mbeumo was the highest scoring player in home matches so far this season. That might have changed now, but I don't really blame you for Mbeumo. He was a good choice. Bournemouth are better than we expected this season, though. That's certainly worth mentioning. I'm just happy I went for Salah. I said this all along. If I'm buying Salah this week, I'm going to captain him. I said the same going into Game Week 10. I didn't buy him at that point, the same with Cunha. So I lost out on some points by delaying the move a little bit more, but thankfully I did do it this time round and I got a few points out of it. Actually, a nice game week, says Kevy. 81 all out, really good score. The lap going off against Spurs helped. Well, I'm happy for you. you know, not just with the points, but also the result with that game. So good job with the Salah swap last minute. Yeah, I kind of delayed it because, as I usually do in FPL and UCL fantasy streams, I kind of just answer questions and go through all this stuff. I overthink with my own team, and then I just basically give myself the last few moments to make a final decision. Thankfully, it worked this time out, but Haaland could score a brace or a hat-trick against Tottenham next week, and I know the risk by selling him, but I just think Salah is the best asset in the game right now. I do think Palmer is still a close second, and over the next 4-6 game weeks, we could see a change in the top dog in FPL once again. Yeah, I think Salah, I've said this even back in Game Week 3, when people were asking, oh, I missed out on Haaland against Ipswich Town triple captaincy, when should I use the chip? I always mark Salah against Southampton home and away as a great opportunity, so I definitely don't mind it. I'm definitely more keen than I would be this week with Salah against Villa, or the other options we had, like Solanke against Ipswich Town, which surprisingly, he ended up blanking, but football is a funny game. Nice one, Manish, 77 points, even with the -8, that's a very good score. Yeah, Joao Pedro is back to being an option, but I'm going to discuss him in the Transtips video in a few days' time. I'm just going to give some kind of pros and cons, let's put it that way. I do like Joao Pedro, but I think there is a better option in that Brighton attack. Let me just put it that way. Man City and Arsenal dropping points. Again, yeah, it's definitely lovely for Liverpool fans. They're taking advantage, and you have to say, based on the first 11 game weeks so far this season, I think Liverpool have been the best team. There's no denying it. The best offensively. Going forwards, one of the best attacking teams alongside City, Brentford, and arguably Spurs. So, yeah, I think Liverpool deserve where they are. City and Arsenal also deserve to be where they are, and they've been well off it. I'm surprised by their regression this season. A lot of people actually told me during the summer they thought Liverpool would finish outside the top 4. I always said they would be my top 3 for me, but I am surprised at the fact they're still first, because my early prediction was they would be top of the table by Game Week 8. I'm surprised that it's a 10-point gap now, or 9-point gap to Arsenal, and also, 5 points to City, so it's definitely a huge advantage, actually. Evening, Dylan, huge second day for me with Bruno and assets I didn't have not returning. We'll be up to 4k in the world when bonus points are added. Having 0 clones is a nice bonus. I mean, very good all round. Bruno Fernandes got 17 points, and despite I didn't really talk about him much this season, and rightfully so, he was a very poor FPL asset. But this week, I just had a great feeling about him. He was recommended in my Transtips podcast, and he got 17 points. And up next is Ipswich Town away, and then Everton at home. I could see Bruno Fernandes going off, and maybe with Ruben Amorim, he could be a bit like Pedro Gonçalves from Sporting, getting a lot of goals and assists on a consistent basis. A lot of questions and comments are coming in. I do appreciate it, but going to have to whiz through these because I'm very far behind. So Weising says 47 points all out. Yeah, not a great score, but you're still in a very high rank, so don't worry about it. And there is an international break. You might have multiple free transfers. I believe you rolled this week, so I wouldn't be concerned. Horrible week for me. Big Red Arrow, best wildcard team. That is coming very soon. So as I mentioned, I am going on holiday very soon, and I normally kind of spread the videos out during an international break. So up next will be the Transtips podcast. That could be out on the Monday or Tuesday. And then a few days afterwards, it'll be the best wildcard team, and I'll have more time to think about it. I have some deliberations already. I think a lot of people will push towards Bruno Fernandes over a Saka, for example, and that will be discussed in that video. And also the other thing I'd like to discuss would be my transfer plans. That will also be out a couple of days after the best wildcard team. And if possible, I'll do updated versions of all of those videos. Of course, the team selection will be close to the Game Week 12 deadline as well. I'll try to show you a best wildcard team now very quickly, but just bear in mind there could be a few differences by the time I upload the best wildcard team. 1 million rank, 67 points. Look, it's not an awful place to be, Ethan. It's not ideal, but trust me, there's very few... well, there's a fine margins, let's put it that way, in terms of ranks. I was 1 million literally 2 weeks ago. I'm not doing that great, but there has been progression, and 67 points this week is fairly decent. John Darren says, massive red arrow, Maddison and Trent finish me. I'm surprised that Maddison wasn't subbed on earlier. Now, when I was asked, do you think Maddison will start? I said, no, I don't think so, but I think it's always worth keeping a player like that against Ipswich Town. I thought if he got more minutes, he would have created a lot of chances and potentially helped Spurs get the equaliser or winner. But ultimately, it wasn't Spurs' day. Trent is very unfortunate with the injury. I think he's still a hold, as I'll discuss very soon in future videos. Nice one, came back, 77 points. Finally a good game week and faith restored in the team structure. Salah captain and keeping Haaland now. De Bruyne looking close to starting again. Yeah, I think if you're able to build a balanced 15-man squad whilst having Salah, Palmer and Haaland, I think you're in a very strong position. Now, I was thinking about that, but with my future transfer plans that involve buying Saka in Game Week 12, and that's still a possibility for me, despite the yellow flag that's imminent now. But I just thought it was easier for me to sell Haaland and kind of spread the funds around. But it's good to see a diversity in strategies and transfer plans this season. Yeah, sorry, I just read the first part of your statement and kind of agreed with you. I don't think Arsenal are 100% out of the title race, but based on what we've seen so far this season, I just don't see Arsenal winning it. There has to be a massive improvement like we saw in the second half of last year. So when they went to Dubai in January, they went on that massive streak. I think they're capable of that, and their fixture run until April is magnificent. So if Arsenal went unbeaten until the end of the year, or even till, let's say, February, would it surprise me? No, but they need a massive upturn in form, and it's the same issues of Arsenal, the same mistakes being repeated in the boardroom, in terms of transfers on the pitch every single season. I'm kind of getting a bit sick of it, to be honest, but I'll say they're not 100% out of it, but Liverpool clearly are ahead in terms of chances, and I think Man City are still the top dog, but of course they're in terrible form at the moment. Salah's definitely the best option for captaincy, everyone. It seems a bit too easy though, a bit too good to be true. And football isn't played on paper. I thought Son was the best captain in Game Week 11, and he blanks. So football can, throw you these surprises from time to time. Even Haaland against Southampton a few weeks ago scores in 5 minutes. I think triple captainers are licking their lips, and then in the end, he does nothing else. So, look, I think Salah is the best captain. I agree with you, but I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like Palmer or even somebody else outscored him. I don't think he's like 100% nailed on for that. Disastrous Sunday with all blanks. Yeah, pretty much. Same here, mate. Solanke, Palmer, Gabriel, Raya. I'm just kind of thinking, if they didn't give Neto so much bloody space, I could have been walking away with my team winning and also a double clean sheet, but it wasn't meant to be. Bruno saved my game week, jumped on Solanke, kidding myself he'd haul, now looks injured. Yeah, very unfortunate, of course. I don't think he played that badly, but Spurs, I just think, were outplayed. Ipswich Town deserved the victory, and I don't think anybody expected it. 31 points from captaining Bruno, I'm happy. It's going to be 34. He's got 17 points overall. Yeah, Isak's an option. He was highlighted as a buy in my recent Transits podcasts, and he's got a good record against Forest. That's why I highlighted him in Game Week 11, so he's definitely a good choice if he can stay fit. Nice one, Leoma. Happy birthday to you, and hopefully having a great day. 86 points, getting Son was a big mistake. Yeah, but you got 86 points, so enjoy it. Decided to captain Norwegian Fraud as a differential. Pain. Look, he missed 2 big chances, hit the post, he scored as well. It could have been something else entirely, but that's been the case since Game Week 5, a massive underperformance in the last couple of weeks, basically. Yeah, not the greatest score, Twisted Parky, but not that bad, and you're in a great position. So, still, I'd definitely exchange places. Can we do that? But yeah, no, that's really good from you anyway, so far this season. Welcome, Beardy. Yeah, Salah delivering as usual. Honestly, I even said this going into this weekend. I don't mind buying him, captaining him, and getting blanks. So at least trying to jinx him in Liverpool, but I don't think anything's going to stop him right now. Welcome Son Gesso as well. 70 points, good stuff. Abhishek, and a decent rank as well. 321k, very, very nice rank rise. No worries, Twisted Parky. Game Week 12 wildcard draft, please. I'll try to show you a brief one fairly soon. But just keep your eyes peeled for the best wildcard team video, because that's where you'll get a much better team being posted. So the chat is very, very busy right now, so I'm going to put it into subscribers only mode just to kind of control it a little bit more so we can get through all the questions, which is what we always do on this channel. So hopefully you do understand that. I'm going to go through some different screens, which will include a provisional wildcard team, but there will be some changes, I think, over the next couple of days. So yeah, let's change this. Yeah. Oh, it's already on subscribers only mode. Are you kidding me? I thought when I set this up it wasn't. Okay, that's a big fail. Well, forget what I said. I appreciate all the subscribers tuning in and putting so many comments. I'm going to try and get through all of them. Yeah, exactly that. Bruno Owners, fair enough. Great fixture this week. Leicester City missing a lot of key players. I don't think he'll replicate 17 points in the next 2, but he can still get some good returns, so he's still a good buy. Wissa or Welbeck? I'd buy Welbeck. I think the Brighton fixtures long-term are really impressive. I do like Wissa, though, don't get me wrong. But if I'm buying one right now, it would be Danny Welbeck. In Boomer Captain killed me, have Salah and Fernandes, but it's cool. Well, you've got both of them at least, so not many people are in that position. What FPL does to my Mondays is unspoken. Yeah, I'm always more focused on how my team does, but the fact they're doing poorly, then you couple it with a very bang average season so far. Yeah, it's not looking good, but that's why looking at other things beyond football and FPL, thankfully Argentina are good and they're my national team. At least that's a bit of solace, but yeah, I get what you're saying. If I already have Pedro, should I keep him and play him? Definitely. It's just for those that don't have Joao Pedro, I'd possibly suggest going for Danny Welbeck instead or holding off from Joao Pedro at the moment. I think Rota could start over Joao Pedro in Game Week 12, and I don't think... Let me put it this way. Maybe I'm a bit traumatized by what happened in Game Week 4. Joao Pedro was one of our first transfers in this season. He ended up missing out in Game Week 4 with the injury over the international break and stuff like that. I'd just be a bit careful about kind of jumping the gun on the Brazilian. I'm going to Spain once again. It's like I'm going to Spain every single time. But yeah, that's 3 times this year. Timber worth considering. He wasn't great today. He had one very good passage of play, but I do think Timber was quite poor for his standards. Took some poor touches. I do think he's better than that. But he's not bad. I think he is currently first choice in that Arsenal 11. He can play anywhere across that defensive line. But it's still Gabriel for me. He's got the most goal threat. He can get bonus points. And if Arsenal get their act together, a lot of clean sheets are possibly headed their way. So I'm not against it. I just think there are better options in that Arsenal defensive area. Green arrow, but don't even care about FPL after that Spurs performance. Yeah, look, I feel the same way about my own club. You know, if you ask me, like, would you rather be bottom of FPL, be around 10 million, everyone laughing at you in the FPL streams, tuning off and stuff, or Arsenal win the league? I'm going to pick Arsenal win the league, but that's not happening this season, and it probably never will. Please reveal who do you think is better than Joao Pedro on the Brighton attack? Yeah, Danny Welbeck for me is the best one right now. His consistency has been incredible. Joao Pedro is still good, and for bonus points, he's a machine, a bit like Cunha. But at the moment, I'd rather buy Danny Welbeck. Diaz out for Bruno, my captain. Fair play, mate. Fair play. You know, Diaz starting against Aston Villa, against that high line, it could have been carnage, but it went well for you. Son, 98 minutes versus Ipswich and blanked my captain. Look, if I had Son, I would have captained him. I was really bullish on him this week. It just didn't turn out the way you wanted. Football can be full of these surprises, but I kind of call Spurs the Robin Hood of the Premier League. I mean, Crystal Palace and Ipswich Town, without a win this season, well, in come Tottenham Hotspur, and they get the first one of the campaign. Bench to lap for Johnson. I think Johnson was a great play this week. I really backed him to do well, especially against Leif Davis. I thought that could be a mismatch in terms of Davis sometimes kind of losing track of his runners sometimes, and Johnson's positioning has been great this season. He missed a big chance as well, but Delap was really good today with the goal and the assist. Isak, Watkins instead of Solanke. Yeah, I mean, they both clearly are better. I did talk about Solanke being a sell around Game Week 10, but I did say the ideal time to sell Solanke is Game Week 12. So if you kept him for Aston Villa, at least you got that 16-point haul. I'm not saying Solanke is a must-sell, by the way. There are still some good fixtures coming up. Even Bournemouth away could be classed as one, Fulham at home, and also Southampton away. But I do think Isak is better. Jackson, if he can stay suspension-free, which I very much doubt. So let's go through the different screens. I love the questions and stuff. That's why I just can't let go, it seems. So, that's why the chat was different. I'm a bit of a numpty, aren't I? Let's keep it PG, though. Let's keep it PG here and don't say anything stupid. So, let's go to the FDR, the updated version. Leicester City are top until Game Week 17, but are we interested in their assets? Not really. Bournemouth, Ipswich Town, Wolves and Newcastle are in the top 5, and Arsenal are now 6th. I think they were 3rd in the previous table I showed you only last week, and that's because in Game Week 17, for some reason, Crystal Palace is marked as a difficult fixture. Now, having said that, Palace will beat Arsenal in Game Week 17. Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace, Liverpool, Spurs and City are in the bottom 5, so we could see some big changes in the Premier League table with some of those fixture swings, and also in terms of the best players to buy on the wildcard. But I'd still recommend 2 or 3 Liverpool players. Salah and someone like Konate or a Liverpool defender is definitely on the cards. In terms of predicted points, Haaland has gone back to top here. So Salah was first in Game Week 10, but it seems like Fantasy Football Hub do back Haaland against Tottenham Hotspur. I don't really blame them, to be fair, after what we saw today. Saka, Isak and Foden are in the top 5, and let me raise you a Cole Palmer. I definitely have him in the top 3 personally against Leicester City. He is 7th in this list with De Bruyne in 6th. Then we've got Jimenez, Watkins and Son in the top 10. Of course, Son has a great record against Man City. 4 losses in a row for Pep Guardiola. The first time that's ever happened in his career. Very surprising stuff, but you have to say ultimately, all of those results were probably deserved. Let's look at price changes. So we could see Van Dijk, Mazraoui, Hall, Kelleher and Cunha go up in price tonight. I can't stress this enough. Unless you're going to be priced out, do not make early transfers, especially during an international break. Now, if you're wildcarding, by the way, and you're 100% settled on it, you can make early moves, take hits and stuff like that, or make transfers and then activate the wildcard at any stage to kind of gain some value by going in for players who are about to rise early and also selling those that are about to drop in price. So if you're wildcarding, it's different. But for non-wildcarders, definitely don't make early transfers if you can help it. As for price falls, we could see Adama Traore, who was benched this weekend, Kwanzaa, Sancho, Lancashire, Creswell, Turner, Akanji, Romero, and Raya, who is still in my team. And he will be discussed in future videos as well, because I think one popular strategy will be downgrading one of Raya or Gabriel to then fund Palmer, Salah, and possibly Saka in the midfield, which is going to be very popular in the next couple of weeks. As for Drafthound, this is their algorithms for Gameweek 12s. Liverpool are top in terms of chance of scoring over 2 goals. City are just narrowly behind, though, despite facing a much better team on paper in Tottenham Hotspur. Arsenal are third. Then we've got Chelsea and Newcastle in the top 5. If we change this to clean sheet odds, it will be slightly different. But ultimately, Liverpool are top and City do fall down quite substantially. And Chelsea rise to second, facing Leicester City away from home, Enzo Maresca's former club. Let's now go to the captaincy discussion. So in the top 100k, Salah was captained by over half of those managers. In second was Haaland with a quarter of the votes or the captaincy. Solanke third, Son fourth, and Mbeumo fifth. So really, it was Salah captainers who came out on top there. But Bruno Fernandes, those that went there, you would have gotten even more points with 2 assists and a goal. Cunha as well, a really good shout with 12 points. So some great captaincy decisions and picks this week. But some of them, like Solanke, Son, very underwhelming, even Mbeumo, to many of our surprises. But let's now give you a slight preview of what my team could look like in Gameweek 12. So I've only got 1 free transfer. I've used all 3 of them to bolster my Gameweek 11 team. It did result in a green arrow and a lot of points gained. However, I do have some issues. I have to start one of Solanke or Chris Wood as things stand, and my defensive line doesn't look great in Gameweek 12. I know Arsenal have been terrible defensively, no clean sheet since Gameweek 4, but I do think with this fixture run coming up, a double up in their defence could be viable. Of course, if I had unlimited transfers and stuff, I'd be going for Konaté over Gabriel and stuff like that, and diversifying things, or maybe I'd go in a different direction. But I'm actually still looking at Konaté as a possible transfer for my team, and maybe if Saka is still yellow flagged or a doubt, and I want to take a short-term punt, Bruno Fernandes could come into my setup, replacing Phil Foden, and even a -4 hit to sell one of Solanke or Chris Wood. Preferably it would be Solanke, and I could go to Danny Welbeck or any striker of my choice. It could be João Pedro, maybe Wissa, but I think the most likely striker transfer would be Danny Welbeck. So let me just show you what things could look like very soon. And by doing this sort of transfer, it gives me 2.1 million in the bank, whilst also buying Saka for Foden. And with those moves, and by the way, you know what? Let's actually do something like this. This could be, discussed heavily in my transfer plans video or possibly the team selection. So Fernandes and Welbeck in for a -4. I don't really mind doing that sort of aggressive move. Then in Gameweek 13, I could buy Mazraoui, or I think with Konaté, I wouldn't buy him in Gameweek 13 because they do play City. I think the best time to buy Konaté will be Gameweek 12 when they face Southampton away. That is another transfer I'm looking at, so I could be very aggressive with my moves. So let's actually, I think for now I'm going to keep things as they are. This is all going to be discussed in my transfer plans video. I'm going to have a lot more clarity on that situation. But since I've been asked already about the best wildcard team, let's load up what I've currently come up with. Remember, it's only a draft and there are so many different options. So Robert Sanchez is my current pick in goal, but Onana has been great so far this season in FPL, and he's got 2 good fixtures coming up. Then it's a bit kind of mid. As for my defenders, I've gone for Gabriel, Mazraoui, and Konaté in the starting 11 with 8 Nuri. And if you've got the funds, by the way, I would go for Joachim Andersen over Van den Berg. But with my funds, I'd be 0.1 million short. In Mbeumo, Saka, Salah, Palmer, and Semenyo. But one thing we could do, at least for now, as a short-term play, is go for Fernandes instead of Saka. And then easily you could afford Joachim Andersen. That's no issue. I could even upgrade Semenyo to, let's say, a Brighton midfielder if I wished. But as you can see, it's very easy to build this sort of squad. And it looks very strong, actually, with no Erling Haaland or City assets. And I think they will turn things around fairly soon. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat, since a lot of people have been asking me about a best wildcard team. I think for those that haven't activated the chip, of course it is team dependent, but it is a great opportunity to deploy the booster because of the fixture swings coming up. And I think Gameweek 13, for example, is a bit awkward with fixtures like City versus Liverpool, which is going to be massive in the title race. But that's what I've currently come up with. And of course, Saka is still in my plans, and I still think is a great choice in the wildcard. He will be discussed as well in that video. Hopefully his injury isn't too serious. Unfortunately, he keeps getting kicked, the most fouled player in the league, and he just suffers a lot of these knocks and injuries throughout the season. On a more positive note, FPL Challenge went quite well for me, actually. Despite captaining Son, I will have 62 points after Anana's 2 bonus points in FPL this week. So Anana with 9, 8 Nuri with 6, Son with 16 because of shots on target, which was the challenge this week, Haaland with 14, and Salah with 17 points in FPL Challenge. Only the 1 shot on target, and that's all he needed to get on the score sheet against Aston Villa. So that's all covered. Let me know your thoughts. If you want to go back to the wildcard team, I'd encourage you to rewind the stream and pause it if you wish, but that'll be discussed in detail in future podcasts. Yeah, I think Lewis to Mazraoui is a good transfer. Just bear in mind, beyond the next 2 game weeks, United don't have the best fixtures. How about to sell Mbeumo and buy Bruno? I'd still keep Mbeumo for the next 2 game weeks, but I think that's still a decent transfer in. But yeah, I wouldn't sell Mbeumo now. I think game week 14 or 15 might be the play. Yeah, Dama got benched. Yeah, that was mentioned before. Unless I said something wrong, but I'm fairly sure I did say that. Dallo being taken off at 54 minutes, killing my clean sheet. Yeah, very unfortunate, to be fair. And it's not because of that I prefer Mazraoui, by the way. Amrim is going to have a different approach and setup to Ruud van Nistelrooy. We can't judge too much, in my opinion. We could see a manager bounce with the Portuguese manager, or it could take a while for him to implement his ideas. It's going to be one of 2 extremes, in my opinion. So United will still probably be inconsistent, although who knows. I think if they get their act together, 4th place is certainly there for the taking, especially with how the Premier League is this season. But yeah, Mazraoui is my current preference. I wouldn't go from Dallo to Mazraoui, though, in Game Week 11, or Game Week 12, should I say. Yeah, Game Week 12 wildcard has just been shown. I have Delap, Wissa, and Wood. Who should I sell for Joao Pedro? It's still probably Delap for me. Now, if you're looking at the fixtures, Brentford and Nottingham Forest are near the bottom over the next 8 game weeks, and in fact, Nottingham Forest are actually 20th for the next couple of weeks. So I'd keep Chris Wood for Ipswich Town at home in Game Week 13. I'd probably sell Delap. I think Wissa and Wood are better options, but there's not much separating all 3 of them. They're all good choices. Which midfielder should I get instead of Foden? Still for me, Saka or Bruno Fernandes. I think Fernandes is a short-term play, but if he continues this form under the new manager, Fernandes could once again enter the kind of thinking of top 5 midfielders in the game and possibly exceed Heung-min Son, but it's still early days, in my opinion. Yeah, thoughts on Bruno are just covered now, so yeah, hopefully you got that. Sell Haaland for Cunha, Isak, and Fernandes. Yeah, I'm on board with it. All of them have been highlighted as buys in my Transfer This podcast recently. I can't even speak English right now. Should we stay away from C assets on a Game Week 12 wildcard? I think you could still go for 1, and I think some people could still have Erling Haaland and maintain a balanced 50-man squad, but I certainly wouldn't double or triple up. Salah captain in 12, Wood 13. That's my current plan. Yeah, I'm on board with it. It seems a bit too good to be true. Sell Wood and get Joao Pedro, free transfer. Not for me. Chris Wood is still worth holding on for, especially in Game Week 13 against Ipswich Town. Semenyo to Bruno now or wait until closer to the deadline? I'd wait. And Semenyo is still worth holding on to. Hold then in 13 Pedro and Buonanotte for Semenyo and Archer. Can't afford Welbeck, or sell Semenyo and Haaland and get Saka and a premium forward outside Haaland in 13. My current thinking will be selling Haaland. And you could also buy Isak or Watkins, and my current preference would be Isak. It depends, FPL Kevy. You can still keep Haaland and have a good squad, but I think in a lot of cases, and that's the reason why I ended up selling him this week, I just like what you can build without him. Haaland is going to go off in certain game weeks. He's going to get another hat-trick this season. We don't know exactly when. Against Tottenham, my current prediction is he will score a brace and City will win. So you could definitely make a case for keeping and captaining him this week, but I think having Salah, Palmer, Saka, maybe a premium defender or 2, maybe Isak up front, and a very balanced squad, that's what I'm looking to build right now. Hi, thoughts on Haaland to Isak and Son to Fernandes? Looks good to me. As long as you're buying Palmer and Salah with that money, I'd look to sell Haaland, because if you're not, and you can afford Sonta Fernandes anyway, you can keep Haaland for one more week. I don't know if you remember, I said if I captain Fernandes, Haaland will score a hat-trick, but ended up still going for Fernandes. Well, I'm happy you jinxed it, Trenix. I also was trying to jinx him in my on my Twitter feed. No worries, Harry. Nuclear Atom says, my knee-jerk move paid off. On Sunday, I did McNeil and Haaland out for Salah and Isak -4. Moves like this works for me most times. Yeah, I think if there's a proven formula for you, it's good to kind of follow it. It's not always going to be the case, but I'm glad it did this time round. Kunal says 93 with -4. Bought in Mazraoui and Cunha. Nice. Thinking of bringing in Isak or Pedro. My preference is Isak, but there is a big difference in price. Another forward I like a lot is Danny Welbeck. 75 points, Son to Saka or Bruno. Long-term Saka, I think he'll score more points. But Bruno Fernandes over the next two looks very enticing. I don't think he'll get 17 points again. We might see 8 to 11 points or something in one of those matches, but I could still see good returns over the next two. So it all depends how you want to play it. I like to look at transfers long-term, so Saka is still my answer. No worries, Shavain. Yeah, English is hard, but I mean, normally my English is pretty decent. It's my Spanish that's lacking a little bit. No worries, Sad. Should I triple captain Salah in 12? It's a great opportunity, but it's not the only one. When Salah faces Southampton at home later this season, when Haaland plays against Southampton away, or Ipswich Town away, there's going to be a lot of different opportunities. Even Palmer against Leicester this week, and of course when he faces Southampton. So I'd probably do it. That's the way I look at it. But I don't think it's like 100% you have to, otherwise you're doomed. I bought De Ligt, considered Mazraoui as well, hoping that MDL scores a couple of headed goals to justify the extra spend. Yeah, I mean, De Ligt is being targeted from set pieces, especially in earlier games this season. He offers by far the biggest threat in the United team, so that could definitely work. My preference is Mazraoui, and it always has been. I've said this since probably Game Week 2 or 3, actually. Had Fernandes and Cunha, nicely played. Nucleam says, thoughts on Semenyo and Borro out for Bruno and Hall -4. Yeah, I like it. I still think Semenyo has a lot to offer, but Fernandes is a better FPL asset, despite the big difference in price. And Lewis Hall is looking decent. Newcastle with 3 victories in a row now. Any good defender you recommend? Kanate. Just bear in mind he plays City in Game Week 13. I don't think Liverpool will keep a clean sheet there, despite how good they've been. But yeah, a lot of those kind of defenders you would have seen in my wildcard team I showed you just a few minutes ago. So if you rewind, you will see the defenders I recommend. Isak for me, over Joao Pedro, but there is a massive difference in price. It's possible. I'll be discussing this in my Transfer Plans podcast. So my initial plan was to buy Saka, and I'm still quite bullish on getting Saka back in the long term. But I might go a bit more short term with my move and buy Bruno Fernandes, just targeting the next 2 fixtures and kind of hoping FPL-wise for a manager bounce by Ruben Amorim. So yeah, either Fernandes or Saka will come in for Foden if I make a transfer there. Welbeck up front is a possibility. Most likely Solanke would make way. And then Kanate in my defence. I'm even open to taking a -4 hit next week since I've only got 1 free transfer. Could Raul be sold after Game Week 12? I think Jimenez is still worth holding on to, but of course they have already played Brentford when they made that late comeback. Next up for Fulham, well, they do play Tottenham very soon actually, but next up is Wolves at home, Jimenez's former club. Yeah, I think you could definitely hold on to him, but I do prefer Welbeck, that's for sure. I bought in Bruno for a -4. Getting rid of Haaland is making me climb my league so quickly. Yeah, look, there will be some ups and downs. Haaland will score braces and hat-tricks at some stage. It could even be in Game Week 12, but hopefully that continues because I also did the same thing as you. I sold Haaland. I was very aggressive. I made 3 transfers in Game Week 11, and so far it's gone well, but that could easily switch. Farid says, I have Welbeck, Raul, and Isak. Should I sell Raul for Cunha or hold and sell in Game Week 13? I'd probably favour Fulham in this game, so I wouldn't go from Jimenez to Cunha this week. Maybe in 13 or 14. But yeah, I think you just hold on to him if anything. It's fun without Haaland. So far, yes. So if he continues to kind of underwhelm, I'll definitely agree with you. But that won't be the case in my opinion. Unbelievable again. I was triple up on Spurs. Season well and truly over. Look, it was a great fixture. Spurs have had a great home record this season. That's now 2 defeats, of course, in the Tottenham Hotspur stadium, but it's surprising. I don't think anybody expected it. But so yeah, I think with double and triple ups, I mean, I always say try to go for like the more reliable teams, but look at Arsenal. I mean, they were great last season and the year before, but so far this campaign, they've been very underwhelming. So this triple up has kind of been very poor for me. And I do say triple up because I did have Saka on my Gameweek 6 wildcard, the only one who has delivered for me so far. Joao Pedro or Wissa. I still prefer Wissa a little bit, but Brentford's fixtures aren't as good as Brighton's over the next 6 to 8. Yeah, Dotto, I did cover your question. My preference would be Saka long term. I did give an in-depth answer. You know, if you want to go for the next two, I think Fernandes will outscore Saka, but I like to look at these transfers longer term. I'll have Wood playing versus Raya and Gabriel in my team, Delap playing versus Dallo, and Saka versus Aina. My other defenders are Dunk and Lewis. What to do in this case? I'd look at starting Dunk. Even if you got like a Cunha or something like that, Strand Larsen, I'd look to start Dunk, who could be available fairly soon. Rico Lewis, I think, is benchable against Tottenham. I don't think City keep a clean sheet. I've also got Chris Wood potentially facing my double up of Raya and Gabriel, but that's why if Solanke is available, I might just start him instead, or take a -4 hit and buy Danny Welbeck. So I understand your question. It's a good one. I don't like having those clashes in the 11, but I don't think it's that bad, in my opinion. Maybe because you have so many of them, it could cause some issues, and you're kind of guaranteeing almost some blanks. But I wouldn't mind starting Chris Wood against Arsenal with their current form. FPL Kevy says, thanks. Yeah, I don't even captain Haaland at the moment. Always Salah. Might wait till after Spurs when I have 2 transfers, then out. Yeah, now, Gameweek 13 on paper is like the ideal time to sell Haaland. I'd be surprised if he got a massive haul at Anfield, but straight afterwards is Nottingham Forest. He has scored a hat-trick against them in the past, and good fixtures afterwards for City. But yeah, at the moment, if you're not going to captain Erling Haaland, who's 15.3 million, 15.2 now, I mean, is he really worth the money? So far, at least in the last 5-6 games, I don't think so. Who should I get Salah in for? I still think Smith Rowe, but in the last 3 game weeks, he has been very impressive. You could definitely make a case for selling Rodgers instead, but I'd probably sell Smith Rowe here. 8-9 red arrows in a row, quitting the game for now, no Salah. Look, I understand what you mean. I have been through very poor runs as well, and even this season, I've not been happy with my FPL performances, but just take the international break, kind of switch off. I still think you can make some massive rises. There isn't that much of a difference in ranks right now, so it's very early on, I think, to kind of throw in the towel. I think you can still make a comeback. Just buy Salah, and if you don't get points, at least you jinx them. Try to think of the positives. That's what I ended up doing with Salah. Pick 3 on wildcard: Ivanilson, Jackson, Strand Larsen, Joao Pedro, Wissa. Good question. My issue with Jackson is the 4 yellow cards he has. 1 more and he's suspended. I'd probably still go for him though. So Jackson, Wissa, and at the moment, I think I'd go for Ivanilson. But if you got Semenyo already, I'd probably look elsewhere. Now, my personal favourite would be Welbeck. So that was already covered earlier. If I'm building a wildcard team right now, it'd be Isak, Cunha, and Welbeck. Liverpool, Madrid in Anfield. I mean, on paper, you're kind of right, Nate, but I think Liverpool are the better team right now. So if they both continue what they've been doing so far this season, I think Liverpool walk this game. They could even thrash them 3 or 4. But Madrid in the Champions League is a different animal. They're in a very precarious situation, and they do have Liverpool's number in the competition. Yeah, look, he wasn't the best captain. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes no. But Salah was second in my list. I ended up captaining him. I'm happy. I don't think anybody expected Spurs to lose, but it's not the most surprising. Let's put it that way. If there's one top 6 club to lose to Ipswich Town at home, it's probably Spurs. You can't write this. I had McNeil on, who didn't play, so Gabriel came on for him, but I had Joao Pedro 11.2 on my bench and Garnacho in my 11, but then he got subbed on in real life. Yeah, like, sometimes football can be like that, and FPL control you. But, yeah, with Joao Pedro, I don't think anybody expected him to make such an impact with limited minutes. Inter Napoli and Sociedad Barca still to go tonight. Yeah, they could be interesting games, but I just think Barcelona win quite comfortably. And as for Inter Napoli, I think Inter get the job done. They're a very defensive-minded team. They can play some good football sometimes, but I don't know. From what I saw the other day, it was a bore fest. What do you think about Robinson for Liverpool? Oh, Robertson. not really interested. He did very well this week, but you're going to see rotation with Simicast. Arne Slot even commented on this. He's got two very good left backs in his opinion. So if you're going for a Liverpool defender, I'd say Konate or Trent. And of course, Van Dijk is still viable, but I'd rather go for Konate. Thoughts on Son and Havertz, the Cunha and Palmer? I'm on board. I really am. A bit unfortunate with the Havertz one. He was offside, but that could have been massive for you. Yeah, I think Cunha and Palmer's an upgrade. I went triple Spurs attack and captain Solanke on FPL challenge to jinx them, and I couldn't stand Solanke after what he did to me last week. Wow. Surprised you're trying to jinx Spurs as a Real Madrid fan. When are you planning to get Haaland in the future? Well, I just sold him, so ideally not for a long time. I think with City's fixtures turning for the better in 14, you know, that's kind of a window for me to potentially go back, but it probably means selling Salah, and I can't see myself doing that right now. So I'll keep my options open, never say never, but ideally, I think I kind of keep this no Haaland structure for a while. Would you take a -4 to get Palmer Saka in 12? Yes. Just bear in mind Saka will be yellow flagged. He came off injured around 80 minutes, but he's got a good record against Forest, and I do back Arsenal to finally turn things around. It might be a bit too late already. Son worth keeping or getting Bruno? I think Son could still do damage against City, but I'd rather go for Fernandes, Saka, Palmer. Salah goes without saying. I've got Havertz at this point. I can just sub him, but I think getting an Isak is a move to do. Yeah, once again, with Arsenal's fixtures turning for the better, I think Havertz will do well, especially with Odegaard coming back, Havertz playing up front, and I think Arsenal will slowly get back to their best version. But Isak is an upgrade, so I think, yeah, it's probably best to do it. Bonus points are in. Bruno on 34. Yeah, no point refreshing my page because I got no bonus points, so I'm going to keep that as it is. Sell check to Adama. Is it? Oh, Ahmad, sorry. I don't think Amad Diallo's nailed on, though. It could be Garnacho starting the next game, and especially with a new manager, I think it's a very risky pick. So, honestly, I probably wouldn't do it. If you want a budget midfielder, I'd recommend Semenyo, Rodgers, even Smith-Rowe. I don't think I'd go for Amad Diallo. Have 90 points with João Pedro, Mikalenko on the bench. Wow. That's a really high score considering those circumstances. It could have been 100 plus very easily. Man City have United, Liverpool and Spurs in their games before first round end. Still will have Haaland in my team. Just no captain in that game. Yeah, look, Haaland will score goals even in these big games. It's just, as I mentioned before, at 15.2 million, if you're not going to captain him, you know, this is the way I was kind of looking at it myself. I just don't really see the need to have him in my team. Salah's clearly the better option right now. Liverpool are flying, so I wanted to make that switch. And in order to have a balanced squad, make the transfers I wanted to, that's why I sold Haaland. But for those that kept him, I think that's absolutely fine. There's different ways of playing it. I don't think you need to sell him. I just think it makes it easier to build a very good squad. Are Mbeumo and Wissa potential sells in 14 onwards? Yeah, I definitely sell one of them. Not both. I think you could still have value in holding one. But yeah, it's a good question. I think I'd keep one and sell the other. Who that would be is an interesting one. I think you could argue Wissa is maybe the better option because there are less choices up front. But even then, you've got Cunha, Welbeck, João Pedro potentially, Isak. I think there are so many choices in both positions right now. Yeah, I think so, Michael. I've got bigger priorities. I've got 1.3 in the bank, so I could do Foden to Saka, or I could go to Fernandes. Solanke to Welbeck is on the agenda right now, or maybe I could go to Isak. That's another possibility for me. And I could buy Konate for Rico Lewis and maybe upgrade Van den Berg. So there's other transfers I'm looking to do. But because Arsenal have been so poor since Game Week 4, I think this defensive double-up could still end up being a complete flop. It has been in the last month or two. But with these fixtures now coming good, I think it might be worth holding on to this and giving them another chance. And by the time we get to 14-15, if Arsenal still haven't kept a clean sheet, then I'll probably be looking to sell. And then afterwards, they'll keep the clean sheets, but at least I don't jinx them. So that's the way I'm looking at it right now. Trent and Johnson out, Bruno Fernandes and Mazraoui in. I'm still quite bullish on Trent. Johnson out, absolutely fair enough. Even if he does well against City, which is possible considering how they play, I think Johnson is a sell. So overall, I'd say yes. I'm just a bit apprehensive about selling Trent. Mohamed G.A. says, I have one free transfer, Delap to João Pedro, Evanilson, or Lewis to Aït-Nouri. I like Aït-Nouri until Game Week 18, but he's facing Fulham away. So I think they're going to concede a few goals. You're relying on attacking contributions, which he's certainly capable of. but I'd rather do the forward transfer. It's just the lap did so well for you this week, so I can understand why you might be a bit cautious about it. Yeah, Fabianski 2 bonus, he did very well. One of my minor mistakes on the wildcard was not going for him over Valdimarsson, and I explained that already. It's because I had Fleck in for most of that deadline stream. I ended up bringing Raya back very late, and as a result, I didn't have enough time to change Valdimarsson to Fabianski. But yeah, he did very well this week. If you start your wildcard, when is the next best window? I think 14, 16, 18. So all the even numbers, essentially. Of course, Game Week 20 you can't because that would be your second wildcard. But I'd say Game Week 14 is the next window. How is Havertz instead of Arsenal defender? I'd just rather go elsewhere. I think Saka is enough to cover the Arsenal attack, which has been struggling. You know, they didn't score against Bournemouth. They didn't score against Newcastle. 1 goal against Chelsea. It's just not good enough. I think they'll turn things around. And Havertz is still a good choice, especially now playing up front again. But I think Isak is better at this moment in time. You've got other options that I've mentioned before. Jackson, Joao Pedro, Welbeck, Cunha, Strand Larsen. So my advice would be, no, not for me. I wouldn't go for Havertz right now. Thoughts on my planned Game Week 12 transfer, Dylan? Foden to Saka? Yeah, I was considering the same thing, but I am keeping my options open. Bruno Fernandes, also possibly making other transfers in other positions, but I like it. I think Saka will definitely score more points than Foden from now until the end of the season. Best Lewis replacement for under 4.6 million, Mezraoui. I think he could be a decent shout. When are people going to talk about Vanelson? Yeah, I was actually... So on the Friday, Saturday, I was already making my list for the buy, hold, sell, skip video, the transfer tips. And Evanilson was actually in my provisional buys already. He's been so consistent recently, and another big return this week despite Bournemouth losing. So yeah, I definitely like Evanilson. The reason why I haven't talked about him for my setup is because I've already got Semenyo. I definitely don't want to double up on Bournemouth attacking-wise, despite how impressive they've been recently. Sydney says, would you recommend selling Haaland to bring Saka? If so, which striker would you sell him for? And which midfielder between Semenyo and Rodgers would you sell for Saka? Interesting question, because if it's just a question of Haaland versus Saka, I think Haaland is still better. But then with Saka, you've got 5 million in the bank to upgrade another area. So that's where the big dilemma lies. I think this week Haaland outscores Saka. Let me put it that way. So you could definitely make the case for holding Haaland this week, maybe captaining him against Tottenham. And then you could make that switch around Game Week 13, although straight afterwards you have a good run of fixtures, so that could definitely backfire massively. But yeah, I think with Saka, you probably bring him in for Game Week 13 in this case. He's yellow flagged right now, or he will be very soon. For the next 5, would you get Cunha or Isak? That's a very close one. For the next 5. So, looking at Fantasy Football Hub and their FDR again. I mean, Wolves have slightly better fixtures, actually. If I'm not mistaken. Where's Newcastle? Okay, yeah, not much difference between them, actually. But yeah, Liverpool at home for Newcastle in Game Week 14 isn't great. I think Isak could still do well there, though. Yeah, I think for the next 5, it's very, very tight. But I think I'd give the slight edge to Cunha. And also, the main reason for that is because Cunha is cheaper, and with the extra 2 million, you can do a lot of your squad. But trust me, Isak is a great choice. He was recommended this week as a purchase, so I'm definitely on board. Yeah, exactly. Saka might be injured. I think he'll be fine by that stage, but I mean, with Arsenal's luck with injuries this season, I wouldn't count on it. Is Raya drop? Yeah, it's possible he will drop in price tonight, mate. Yeah. He considered every goal since the rise. His price too expensive for goalkeeper. Look, he was impeccable, really, in the first few game weeks. He was playing so well himself. Arsenal were looking so strong defensively, and it's all turned since Game Week 5. Is Stupinian a good pick going forward? I'd rather go for Verbruggen or Lewis Dunk to cover Brighton defensively. I think there could be rotation with the Brighton fullbacks. Kadioglu is the most exciting going forwards. So, look, he's fine. I just think with Brighton, Welbeck, Joao Pedro, Verbruggen and Dunk, that's kind of my top 4 and probably in that order as well. Yeah, I think Trent will be back for Southampton, but we don't know too much about his injury. So I'll discuss this more in the Transfers podcast. Hopefully I have more information by that stage. But yeah, I think Trent is a hold for now until we know what the injury or the problem is. How long is Trent out for? So yeah, we're getting a few Trent questions. I'll try to find a quote about his injury by Arne Slot, and hopefully that gives a bit of clarity. But at the moment, I don't have anything. So I think it was a hamstring strain. It might have been a potential thigh injury. I'm going to try to find the quote. I think that will be best. If you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. That would be greatly appreciated. Just one quote. I know you might not trust Arteta, but he has given updates on Rice and Saka's injuries. They don't look very good. I don't know if it's long-term. They both couldn't finish the game, so not good. So, of course, you can't trust Arteta, but if he is actually speaking the truth, that is very concerning. Not that it really matters anyway if Arsenal aren't going to compete for the title anyway, which is quite evident so far this season. Yeah, I'm going to go now back to the Trent quotes. Let's see if I can find something. Is this? I think this is from James Pearce. Let me just verify it. Go on his account. Okay, so 2 hours ago we got an update by James Pearce. No scan results yet, but confidence that Trent's hamstring injury isn't too serious. Hope is that the immediate substitution, limited damage. Been playing with painkilling injections in recent weeks after suffering side strain versus Finland last month. And I think I heard about that, that Trent was kind of playing through the pain barrier very recently. So just for those that aren't aware, I'm going to go to that quote now. So a very positive update. I'll be talking about this in my Transfer Tips podcast. I think Trent is a very easy hold. He might even be a purchase for some people this week. I definitely wouldn't blame you. But facing Southampton away, do not sell Trent unless he is definitively ruled out for a long period of time. Saka with an injury of Gordon Palmer variety, likely fine in other words. I hope so. Like I said, we can't really trust Arteta too much in terms of injuries. How many Arsenal and City, if any, would you have on the wildcard? I'd still have at least 2 or 3 from both teams, as in both combined. I think 1 Arsenal, possibly 2. And from City, you're looking at 1 max, I think, at the moment, because they've got Liverpool away in 13. Apart from Haaland, who is still a great choice, I mean, who do you go for? Gvardiol? That's fine, but I wouldn't recommend Lewis right now. De Bruyne, maybe, could be a nice differential. Foden isn't doing it right now. I think he's playing well, but he's not getting the goals or assists, which is mandatory in Fantasy Premier League. Possibly Mohamed GA, but as I mentioned before, I might just persist. You know, I've kept them for this long, and they've now got good fixtures. It doesn't make too much sense for me and my setup to kind of focus on selling one of Raya or Gabriel. Since I've sold Haaland, so I don't need money, what I need to do is bolster the other defenders I've got, like Van den Berg, who is terrible. Mikolenko is expendable very soon. Not to mention I've got Phil Foden, who's underperforming, so I might be buying Saka or Fernandes this week or in the next week or so. And Danny Welbeck up front could be another priority. So my answer for my team would be no. I think for a lot of people, I don't really blame you if you want to diversify your defence and go away from that double up in Arsenal. Yeah, Isak is still really good. You could definitely argue he's better than Cunha or Welbeck for the next 5, but I think all 3 of them are great. Still a good rank, Risky Pal. 51 points isn't amazing, but it could be worse. Still a very good position to be in. Adil says, because I still have Joao Pedro going into the wild card, although I can easily go to Welbeck, I want to keep Pedro, but would you start him in Game Week 12? Yes, I would start Joao Pedro in 12, but I'm not guaranteed, should I say, I'm not convinced he's going to start over Rutter. There is a chance he comes off the bench and he eases back into things. And that's why I prefer Welbeck. I think he's a bit more locked in at the moment. I don't think so, NH. Pedro Neto isn't a player who's going to get you many goals. It was a great strike he did against Arsenal today, but I mean, the amount of space they gave him was ridiculous, to be quite honest with you. But I mean, will he even get 5 Premier League goals? Probably not. If you're going for Chelsea attackers, it's Palmer, Jackson, and that's pretty much it. I wouldn't be looking at Madueke or Pedro Neto right now. Then you're looking at Sanchez in goal or possibly a defender. I wouldn't be looking at Pedro Neto. Yo, Dylan, hope you're doing well. Big green arrow for me this week with 74 points. Wow, Joao Pedro differential. Living up to the Latino dialect's name. Really good stuff. I'm surprised by Joao Pedro's haul, but also quite happy, despite the fact that it doesn't really matter much for me. Arteta doesn't want the players to go on international duties. Yeah, but even then, I think Arteta could do a better job, and not just him, Arsenal in general, of withholding players. Because, I mean, for Odegaard to get injured in an international break, for Saka to also experience the same thing last time out, I mean, they just can't keep having that happen. So they need to be a bit more careful and a bit stronger with the national teams, because let's face it, I'm not even being rude, but these international friendlies and Nations League, it's all bullshit. It's literally irrelevant games. They don't mean anything. You know, you can paint it as a trophy. For me, it isn't. It's just international friendlies with a bit of spice to them. Thoughts on Haaland to Jackson, drop Pedro in Gameweek 12, and upgrade Smith Rowe to Salah for a -4. Have Palmer, so captaining him, Salah or Haaland. They're all great choices this week. My current preference is Salah, but I don't think he's like abundantly clear from the other two. So my current team is Salah captain, Palmer vice. If I had Haaland, I'd be tempted to captain him against Tottenham, but I'd still give the edge to the others. As for your transfer plans, I like it. I would probably do... I'd probably do the -4. I probably would. Just looking long-term as well, you'll captain Salah and Palmer more often than Haaland over the next 6 game weeks. Having said that, of course, against Tottenham, and I even said this against Brighton, I said it yesterday, Haaland will score against Brighton, but I'm selling him. It could be the same case against Tottenham. Buying United assets right now, risky, without knowing Amarin's tactics. I agree. I mentioned that before. I definitely wouldn't double or triple up, but players like Bruno Fernandes, you'd rely on, you know, starting consistently. 2 great fixtures coming up. You can definitely target them and then reassess going forwards. But yeah, I think if Saka's cleared, I think that's probably the best move for my team, to rebuy Saka for Foden, which was a transfer that really didn't pay off for me. But if I want to be a bit maverick or, you know, really target the next 2, I think Fernandes is on radar, and Mazraoui to upgrade my defensive line. Don't remove Arsenal defense. They're still a top defense, and if you held them through their bad run. Yeah, like I mentioned before, it's understandable to sell one of them, but I definitely wouldn't sell both. And in my case, I just don't see myself selling Raya or Gabriel right now, but that could be the case in a few weeks' time. Hi Dylan, is Watkins a sell? If so, who to get? I've got 0.1 in the bank, 2 free transfers. I think you keep Watkins now. He's got a great fixture run. And I know Isak looks slightly better at the moment. You've got Welbeck and all these options I've discussed to death today, but I think you keep Watkins. Wildcard active, Haaland for Cunha, Welbeck and Wissa attack. I love that front line, I really do. I'd still recommend one mid-price to premium forward like Isak, and I think the one to make way would be Wissa, because after the next 2, Brentford's fixtures are quite poor. Now, you could go for this right now and then buy Isak or Jackson later on. That's fine, but just bear in mind with this sort of structure, it does make it a bit difficult to be flexible. I do like having that mid-price to premium forward in there. That's just my kind of personal preference. It doesn't mean it's the right way of playing it. Let's now go to my FPL team, and let me quickly kind of recap on the bonus points from today's matches. So let's start off with Man United 3, Leicester 0. No surprises to see Bruno Fernandes get maximum bonus. Onana and Mazraoui with 2, and Lisandro Martinez with 1 bonus point. As for Newcastle 3, Nottingham Forest 1. A great away win there for Newcastle. Joelinton gets 3 bonus points. Isak 2. And Harvey Barnes with 1. Next up is Spurs Ipswich Town. Despite the booking, Delap gets maximum bonus points. Schmodix gets 2. And Bentancur gets 1. Son wasn't that far off, by the way, from getting bonus points, but it wasn't meant to be for the South Korean. As for Chelsea 1, Arsenal 1, Odegaard gets 2 bonus points on his return. A great performance by him. A bit of rustiness. I think there was a few moments he could have done better, but I mean, that assist he provided for Martinelli was class. Pedro Neto got maximum bonus points. I would not recommend him in FPL. And with 1 bonus point is Gabriel Martinelli. So yeah, that's all the bonus points covered. Unfortunately for me, none from my Sunday players, but Saturday was good enough to deliver and secure that green arrow. Smash the like button if you haven't already, and check out the link in the description below for Drafthound. I'd highly recommend it, and I've been discussing it for over a year now. It's a great resource to use for all FPL managers, and as I showed you before, the chance of a clean sheet or scoring 2 goals or more is definitely in Liverpool's camp in Game Week 12. Now, if we look at Game Week 13, when City play Liverpool, Arsenal are certainly the most likely team to keep a clean sheet according to Drafthound, with Newcastle 2nd, Bournemouth 3rd, Man United 4th, and then Brighton in 5th. So we're getting a lot of fixture swings coming up. In my opinion, if you're not going to wildcard in 12, which is probably the best time for a lot of people, I'd be aiming for Game Week 14, 16, and 18, but it all depends on your structure. Let's now go back to my FPL team. 69 points all out. My rank has gone up to 647,000. Not too bad, considering I was close to 1 million at the beginning of the game week. I made some bold moves selling Haaland, and of course, by doing so, I was able to buy Cunha and Salah. The other one who made way for me was actually Rodgers in the midfield, and I think the simplest transfer I made was 8 Nuri in for Jacob Greaves, and I started Mikalenko, so that actually worked quite well too. Thank you for the super chat. Let me just get your name up. Thank you, Tiggy Taylor. Always a pleasure, mate. Hiya, thoughts on Igor Thiago return? Will Wissa go wide? That is a great question, and that's always been a problem for the last couple of weeks since Igor Thiago has been in training. That is definitely a possibility, but I think as things stand with Wissa doing so well, I think he stays as the striker with Igor Thiago making cameos off the bench. But if he impresses in training and knocks on the door, and let's say Thomas Frank decides to bench the likes of Schade and Lewis Potter and go for this front three of Wissa, Mbeumo on the wings, and then Igor Thiago up front, that could definitely change the way Wissa's FPL returns happen. He might not get that high ceiling or the bulk of the big chances as he has done in recent weeks. And if we really think about it, you could argue that Wissa's return has coincided with Mbeumo getting fewer big opportunities and being shifted more to a creative role in recent weeks. But I think Wissa will remain up front for now, and probably long enough until Brentford's fixtures turn for the worse. They'd want to sell Wissa anyway around Game Week 14 or 15. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat, and thank you very much for the great question, because I don't think we've had that at all so far this season. Nice one, Manish. Really good stuff. You had a great week. So 72 points, I think, in your case, right? Or no, not -9. You said a -8, didn't you? So 73 points. That's really good. When do we sell Brentford assets? I don't think both of them are a sell. I'd definitely make the case for keeping one of them. It's similar to the Arsenal defensive double-up debacle and debate. I think Game Week 14-15, you'd sell one of them. Now, if Brentford's fixtures, well, they are turning for the worse, if their form also dips a little bit, then you could make the case for selling both. But as things stand, I think selling one is enough. I'ma sell Son. Should I bring Bruno or Saka? My favourite long-term is Saka. That's not going to change unless Bruno Fernandes goes off again and Ruben Amorim makes an immediate impact and suddenly United are one of the most informed teams in the country, which is possible. But I just think long-term Saka will offer more consistency and Arsenal will turn things around. But just bear in mind that Saka is yellow flagged right now, and if he's still a doubt going into Game Week 12, the play might be buy Bruno Fernandes for 2 weeks and then reassess going into 14-15, and then you can ultimately buy Saka later in the season. Yeah, I think Joao Pedro is a really good player. It's just Danny Welbeck's been so consistent in FPL, and unfortunately with Pedro, he gets a lot of injuries. That's happened this season, and that's what I'm kind of a bit worried about. But if he can stay fit, another really good choice. Kind of reminds me of Isak in that sort of way. Talismanic figure, bonus points machine, but injury prone. Suhas says, I have Haaland, Jackson, and Wood. Should I go for Isak and Cunha, selling Haaland and Wood? I would not sell Wood for Cunha. I think Haaland to Isak is fine, although you can make a case for maybe holding off, especially if you aren't buying Palmer or Salah with that money. But Cunha away to Fulham, I don't think that's a guaranteed return. In fact, I'm not confident in Wolves' assets this week, but I might start Nuri and Cunha anyway. And Chris Wood has Ipswich Town at home in Game Week 13. I know they just got their first win of the season against Tottenham, but I still think Forest get a win there, and Chris Wood just needs 1 goal to get bonus points. So my advice would be not to sell Chris Wood for a -4. If anything, you could sell him around Game Week 14 and do it for free. Shank puts his team, free transfers, 2.4 in the bank. Any thoughts, Dylan? Really good squad. You're kind of ahead of the curve in certain areas. You've got that Chelsea defender, although you could argue about how good Colwell is as an FPL asset. Yeah, I think Maddison, McNeil, they kind of scream to me as possible sells. No Salah. Okay, so we're 2.4 in the bank. I would be looking at something like this. I know it's not ideal. Actually, with 2.4, we can maybe do something else instead. Now, unfortunately, it might have to be Haaland out. So Haaland to Welbeck as one particular example. That gives you so much funds. And then you can buy Bruno Fernandes or Saka alongside Mohamed Salah for Maddison and McNeil. Keep him booming for the next couple of weeks, and then you can sell maybe in a few weeks' time. And yeah, I think you're in a very strong position. I'm just a bit Oh, no, you got Flecken and Fabianski. I read that wrong. So, okay, if that's fair enough, you don't need to make a goalkeeper transfer. I know Flecken hasn't been great, but he can get save points. Yeah, I think that's what I do. With those three transfers, kind of restructure your team a little bit. It might be a bit of a pain selling Haaland against Tottenham. I do admit that. But I do think it solves some issues in other areas. You could even upgrade Solanke to Isak as well with the extra funds. I just bought Salah and Cunha from -4. Is it too late? I don't think it's too late, but I do think the immediate result, as in for Game Week 12, might not be anywhere near as good as it was in Game Week 10 or 11. That was my concern when I made the Cunha and Salah transfers this week. Did I miss the boat in terms of getting the immediate gain? Thankfully for me, I was a bit lucky. I got the returns. But yeah, I still think long-term it's the best call. I don't think Brentford attacking-wise have bad fixtures up until Game Week 16. Villa leak goals and Newcastle are poor away. That's fair. And that's why I wouldn't sell both of them. I'd keep one. But I do think with the alternatives like Welbeck, Joao Pedro with great fixtures, not to mention City attackers like De Bruyne and Haaland. You've got, of course, Salah, Saka, Bruno Fernandes. There are so many choices, and that's why it could be worth going in a different direction. Of course, I'm not even mentioning Rodgers, Ollie Watkins, Cunha, and Strand Larsen. Do you think it's a good time to use the wildcard? Yes, but it is team dependent. I can't stress that enough. So we have been streaming for over an hour. I do appreciate those tuning in. Let's keep on plugging the likes up and getting this to over 200. That would be greatly appreciated. And let's also push on towards 30,000 subscribers. By this time next month, for the UCL Fantasy Deadline stream, we are aiming to get to 30k subscribers. We made a lot of progress since the summer, and that's all thanks to your support. I prefer Welbeck. I think Joao Pedro will get more bonus points, but I think in terms of fitness and goal scoring, I would favour Danny Welbeck. Yeah, I think Joao Pedro starts, but it's not a guarantee. It could be another game week before he gets the starting nod over Jorginho Rota. Essentially, they're competing for the same spot as the second striker or attacking midfielder behind Danny Welbeck. Have a headache on who to bench in Game Week 12. Cunha, Semenyo, or Pedro? Pedro and Semenyo play each other, and Cunha, Fulham away isn't easy. That is a good point, but I'm not too... In terms of clashes in your team, that's more so when you've got a goalkeeper or a defender against an attacker. When it's two attackers, it's not ideal, but I don't think it's that bad. They can both score in the same game for me. In my opinion, I think Cunha might be the one to bench, and I do like him a lot. I bought him this week, but I just think Fulham away is quite tough for Wolves. Nice gimmick for me. Got 88 points with Haaland captain. Nice. I mean, not the best captain, but you still got a very high score. That's a sign of a strong team. What to do with Matheus Nunes? Look, he has been in good form recently, but I've always said I wouldn't recommend him in FPL. And at a similar price, you've got Garnacho or Diallo if you want to kind of chance it on a United attacker who could be rotated. Of course, you've got Semenyo, who's very good, and that's good. Rodgers and Smith-Rowe. There are plenty of budget midfielders at your disposal. I don't think Matheus Nunes is really worth it. Should I take a -4 to get rid of Borro? What cheap defender would be good to replace him? I mean, if you could just bench Borro this week, start somebody like even Mikalenko, which isn't ideal, that could suffice. But if you have to buy a defender, I think Mazraoui would be a very good punt this week against Ipswich Town. I think United keep a clean sheet in that fixture. If not Diogo Dalot, but my slight preference is with Mazraoui. Let's see if I can get the chat working again. Thank you to Stepaki for the shout out. As he says, keep on plugging away at the likes. Sydney says, I got 75 with Haaland, but Salah captain. Goes to show that it's the captaincy and supporting cast that matter. Yeah, but there are some examples like the one I just mentioned earlier, 88 points with Haaland captain. But yeah, captain is obviously very big, and that's what I've been lacking since Game Week 3, essentially. I haven't really got it spot on for quite a while, but I just think the strongest sign of a solid team is when you don't get a big captaincy haul and still get a green arrow and possibly get a lot of points in the process. Johnson to Saka and Gvardiol to haul and bench Rodgers, Wissa, Cunha, or hold off a week and start one of the other three. Good transfers, to be fair. I'm assuming they're for free as well, so I'm not against them. But I wouldn't want to bench Yeah, even Rogers, Wiss and Cunha, they're all good choices this week, but my slight preference right now is to buy Saka and Hall and bench Cunha. That's the way I look at it. Johnson to Bruno or Keane to Mazraoui? Johnson to Bruno for me, especially if you've got that defensive coverage for Michael Keane, who won't start, in my opinion. I wish Son didn't play today so my vice-captain Salah can get me some points and Joao Pedro can be subbed on. Yeah, but that was never going to happen, wasn't it? Son has been managed in the last couple of weeks, but yeah, I'm surprised by the result today. Haaland, Johnson, Wood, Lewis to Isak, Salah, Timber and Cunha for a -4. Great transfers, but I wouldn't do Chris Wood to Cunha. I think both of them blanking game week 12. That's my current thinking. I know Cunha has the better fixture on paper. If you want to buy a striker this week, I'd go for Danny Welbeck, but just bear in mind, Chris Wood plays Ipswich Town in game week 13. That is still a captaincy contender when Salah, well, should I say, when Liverpool play Man City, and you might not want to captain Salah or Haaland in that game week. As mentioned before, mate, I would go for Welbeck over Joao Pedro right now. They're both good options, but I prefer Danny Welbeck. Thank you, Tiggy Taylor. Great stream. See you after the international break. My UCL team will need some help also. Yeah, thank you very much, Tiggy Taylor. So does mine. UCL fantasy wasn't great for me. Not a disaster. My transferring of Rafinha worked very well, but I made the wrong captaincy call, as I'll talk about very soon. But there will be more UCL fantasy videos headed your way the week after the next one. So once we approach the Game Week 12 deadline and Match Day 5, I'll be producing more FPL and UCL fantasy content. Just swap Havertz for Isak. Yeah, and Isak's been in great form. My only concern with him is the injury record. Cheap attacker for Villa? Yes, Morgan Rogers. I wouldn't really overcomplicate that. If you don't go for Watkins, I think Rogers is the next best option. Gabriel or Gavardio on Wildcard? It'd be Gabriel for me. And if you rewind the stream a little bit, you will find my provisional Wildcard squad, but I'll talk more about that in the Wildcard video. Best Chelsea defender, I don't like them at all. That's why I recommend Robert Sanchez, because he can get saves and bonus points. I don't think Colwill, Fofana, Badiashile, all these defenders who could possibly start Cucurella have the attacking potential. And the only defender who does in Reece James is injury prone. So I really just can't find myself pushing for them. Even with Malo Gusto, rotation with Reece James is possible. His injury record isn't great. I think a double up in Liverpool ideal. Liverpool are in the bottom 5 of the FDR over the next 6 game weeks. Look, fixtures aren't everything. I think Liverpool are the best team in the league right now. But I think Salah and Konate is probably enough. When do you think Joao Pedro fully gets back into the Brighton starting 11? I'd be convinced by game week 13-14. I think for 12, there is a small possibility that Rotter starts once again. I bought in Bruno and captain him this week. Fair play, Bilal. Dutta says Son to Bruno or third striker Wissa. Already have Raul and Cunha. Or third striker Wissa. Who would you be selling though? I think Son to Bruno is my favourite. Just bear in mind, Heung-min Son has a great record against Man City. I mean, it's a good fixture for City attackers, but I'm very inclined to buy Saka or Fernandes for Phil Foden. Oh, for a -4, I'm not sure. I'm a bit apprehensive about a -4. Long term will pay off, especially with Saka. But you could make a case for keeping Foden here. I think I'd take the -4 hit, but I'm less convinced. Dreaming FPL says Trent to Hall and DCL to Isak, or Trent to Hall and DCL to Joao Pedro, and do something with the money this week after in transferring out Dibbling. I would rather do Trent to Hall and DCL to Isak, but also consider keeping Trent. I mentioned it earlier. If you rewind the stream just a few minutes, it might have been 10-20 minutes now, I did show you on screen the latest update, and it looks like the injury isn't serious. Liverpool do more scans, of course, and hope that it's not a big problem. But early signs are quite good for Trent, and he's facing Southampton away next. I don't think it's a great time to sell him. Tommy Raw says, is double Arsenal defence still viable for Wildcard 12? Yes, I think so. I'd stick to one personally and go for Konate and Gabriel, for example, and maybe a cheaper keeper like Onana or Sanchez. I wouldn't go for Raya and Gabriel personally, but it could still work out. Also, would you choose Isak, Jackson or Watkins up front? Isak right now, and I said this last week and the week before actually, so I'm going to stick with my guns there. Although Jackson, I'll admit, if he didn't have that suspension running over him, I think it'd be closer, and maybe I'd even advocate a double up in Chelsea offensively. So, Isak for me. What are the top 5 defenders for the next few game weeks? Essentially what I discussed in the best wildcard segment earlier. So let me just get that up very quickly. Of course, even Trent for me would still be high up, by the way. But I wouldn't go for Trent and Konate, even though they're both in my top 5, arguably. So just bear that in mind. So let's see if I can get this list up. So yeah, in no particular order, I would say Trent, Gabriel, Konate. I think I'd probably say Mazraoui. And then one of Robinson or Aït-Nouri. I think with Aït-Nouri is simply the fixtures. So that's kind of my rough top 5. I wouldn't recommend Chelsea defenders, to be honest. I think Sanchez is by far the best way of covering their defence. 98 points is really good, Zaz. My Chelsea bias took over for that one. Yeah, I don't think Palmer played well today. There was one moment where Jackson was through on goal and then Palmer passed to the left. If he made that incisive pass, Arsenal in big trouble there. Also, Saka had a poor game. I think the best players in that match, except Odegaard, were a bit lacking offensively. Gutted, I should have bought Bruno instead of Son. Yeah, but look, United aren't reliable. They really aren't. Even with this manager bounce we're probably going to see with Amorim, I can understand why I went for Son. So yeah, I don't really blame you there. You think Timber's nailed? Not nailed on. Calafiori will be back very soon. Let's not forget that. And Arsenal have a lot of options in that defence when everyone's fit. Zinchenko's also available. And it depends on the game. In certain home matches, it wouldn't surprise me to see Zinchenko start to open up defences and make those kind of inverted runs in the midfield. But I think he'll start most games, definitely. He can play left back, right back and centre back. And at Ajax, he even played as a holding midfielder. But yeah, for me, Gabriel's still the best Arsenal defender. Should I take a -4 Haaland and Johnson to Isak and Salah? I'd say yes, but always take into account the risk of selling Haaland, particularly for a hit. I think he's going to score a brace against Tottenham, but I'm looking at the long-term prospects of your moves, and that's why I did something similar by buying Cunha and Salah this week for free, luckily for me. But I was still fearing the worst when Haaland scored against Brighton. Who do I sell first, Son or Foden to Palmer? Difficult one, because I think City will win this game, and I think they'll respond very well. But Son has a great record against Manchester City, and ultimately, you could argue that both of them are a sell. Foden just hasn't done it in FPL this season. 1 assist, which came against Wolves. That's all he's done. Good performances recently against Bournemouth and Brighton, but no attacking returns to show for it. At the moment, I'd say Foden out, but this could easily backfire. I'm aware of that. Best goalkeeper duo for Wildcard 12? Either Sanchez or Onana with Fabianski. Yes, bro, reaction time. What an unreal week. I've had a decent week FPL-wise, but not really feeling euphoric. I just wish the season was over already from an FPL perspective and a Premier League title perspective, but hopefully that changes very soon. Gabriel or Saliba? Gabriel. So yeah, Tadic, I did answer your question, so just bear that in mind. Keeping Solanke cost me Wissa and Bruno points. Oh, for hindsight. Yeah, but Solanke just got 16 points against Villa. It's funny how narratives can change very quickly. I don't regret what I've said in the last couple of weeks. I've always mentioned, for me, Solanke is sellable from Game Week 12 onwards. That's the best time to sell him. And on the Game Week 12 wildcard, I would have probably gone for Solanke to cover Spurs offensively, because I really thought they'd score at least 3 goals past Ipswich Town. And I was wrong. I think we all were. What is your highest and lowest points in FPL? This season, I got 93 points, I think, in Game Week 2 when I triple captained, something like that, 93. Historically, I've maybe once or twice, I've got over 120 points in a game week, mainly in doubles. Lowest, I don't even want to think about it. I think Game Week 29 last season springs to mind. This year, I can't remember, but there have been a few shockers in there. Sydney says, I've got 1 free transfer. My defense is Bodor, Lewis, Aït-Nouri, Mikolenko, and Greaves. Yeah, I'd focus on your defense. It's not terrible. It's not like unsalvageable, but I'd definitely make a transfer there. Greaves should be back, but I don't back a clean sheet for Ipswich Town anyway. So, yeah, I'd focus on your defense, Sydney. Foden to Bruno or Palmer? there's no contest. Palmer is still by far the better option than Bruno Fernandes. Don't forget that. Thank you, Keith, for the very generous super chat. Thank you very much, mate. The Premier League scheduled the international break around Dylan's vacation. Prove me wrong. Actually, I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of scheduled this holiday because different reasons, basically. Family, and also it was more, how do I say this, more manageable for me as well, because it's an international break. I can spread the content around, so I thought it was a very good time to go on a holiday. I need it, especially after how this season has gone. But maybe you're right. Maybe there is a conspiracy kind of flying underneath. Thank you very much for the super chat, Keith. Enjoy your weekend and also the rest of the week. And I'll see you very soon for more UCL Fantasy and FPL videos. Thank you very much. I got 68 points, but I captained Son over Salah. Still a very good score, all things considered. Mate, I thought Son would do really well this week. I'm very surprised by it. I'm glad I avoided Spurs assets in recent weeks. The inconsistency is such a letdown for owners. Yeah. Luckily for me, I got the 16-pointer from Solanke, but I mean, I benched him against United on my wild card. That was a terrible week. Let's not even go into that. I got an assist against Brighton, so it hasn't been that great anyway. It's been okay. So Solanke is benchable for me in game week 12. He's even possibly a sell to Danny Welbeck, which would help me have enough money to buy Kanate, Mezraoui, and Saka in the next few weeks. Actually, with Odegaard, there are conflicting reports recently. So around a week ago, there were some rumours that Odegaard won't be called up to Norway. So I think Arsenal are trying to stamp their authority and kind of keep Odegaard, because the last time Odegaard went out on international break, we all know what happened. As for De Bruyne, I'm actually not aware of that. I need to check Belgium's squad. I'll be honest though, I'm kind of switched off from European qualifiers and stuff. I think they're pretty useless. Nations League as well. I just really have no interest in them. So I'm going to have a look now and see if I can get something from the Red Devils. Belgium. Are they just called Red Devils on Twitter? Where are they? Belgium national team. This might take me a bit of a while to find. I'll try to be as quick as possible. Are they just called Bell Red Devils? Yeah, they are. Okay, they're not even verified. Okay, fair enough. That caught me off guard. I don't have their latest squad. I'm not sure if they released it a few weeks ago, but I don't think that's the case. So yeah, I'm not sure about De Bruyne. I'm not sure if he's called up. So if anyone knows about that, let me know in the live chat. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's not a big deal, but might help De Bruyne, I'd say, do really well from Game Week 12 onwards if he's fresh and ready. So yeah, I can't find that information right now, unfortunately. Unlucky result for Son. Should have got away with double returns on another day. He created 2 big chances. He certainly deserved 1 attacking return. Despite ghosting for the past few matches, says Sahil. Who is this in relation to? Son. Or is it Son? Well, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I do prefer Saka, Palmer, Salah, and even potentially Fernandes right now. But things change so quickly. Have you shown the early Game Week 12 wildcard draft? Yes, I'll go for it one more time since it's very popular. But just bear in mind, I'm going to change quite a few things, I think, for the video. If not, I'll probably explain why I've maintained faith in some of these picks. So this is what I've come up with. Originally, I had Saka instead of Fernandes, but it also allows you to have more money in the bank. This is very affordable. Everybody watching should be able to get this team. You can have Joachim Andersen instead of Van den Berg, who is pretty useless. But yeah, I do think Saka's better than Fernandes beyond the next 2. I have to say that. So you could do something like this. And in my case, I can't afford Joachim Andersen with these funds, so just stick with a 4 million defender like Van den Berg. I would have 0.2 million in the bank because I've already got Van den Berg in my setup, so I've got a bit of value tied up in him. So if I actually just show you here, yeah, I've got 0.2 million. For some reason it says 0.1 still. I don't know, maybe my maths isn't mathing or something. So yeah, that is my provisional wildcard team. I do think Onana might be better than Sanchez, but because I've got Mezraoui already in my defensive line, I wanted to diversify things a little bit. I do like Sells, but Forest's fixtures aren't great. I'll talk about him very soon as well. But yeah, that is a provisional team. Let's go back to my FPL team, which isn't anywhere near as good, but it did okay this week. 69 points. I bought Højlund and going through depression now. Yeah, I think very recently, I'm not sure if it was Game Week 9 or 10, I did highlight Højlund as a skip. He can still do really well, though, against Ipswich Town and Everton. I think he'll get a goal in one of those two games, but Wissa, Cunha, Welbeck, João Pedro, there are so many options that are better than him, quite frankly. Even Solanke, in my opinion, is better, but I wouldn't go for him. Don't go for him now. The others would be Jackson and Isak, who is one of my favourites at the moment. So I think give him one more week. You keep your United assets for these fixtures coming up. I also think Højlund will get more chances under Ruben Amorim because since he's joined United, Højlund's lack of shots is actually very worrying. Every time I talk about him in the Transfers podcast, like last season he had 30 shots, something like that. It's ridiculous. How is a striker for United having 30 shots in a season? It's crazy. This season I think he's got like 4 or 5 shots on target, and that might be even lower. Need rest to rethink the transfers and heal the pain. That's a good way of summing it up. I'm just happy there's an international break. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm very happy. Devil says sold Haaland to Isak and Captain Salah. Very good score, 90 points. Can't be understated, and Isak is a really good choice there. Well, next is a straightforward choice to Captain Salah. It seems too easy. Easy says De Bruyne doesn't want to go to Belgium national team since Belgium's performances lately are poor. Okay, fair enough. I mean, Belgium are very inconsistent, sorry, and they ruined their golden generation. So, yeah, not surprised by that. Thoughts on Mbeumo to sack in Game Week 12? Yeah, I'm on board. Now, Brentford have a poor fixture on paper, but as somebody mentioned earlier, I still think the likes of Wissa and Mbeumo could produce some good returns in that time frame. So it's not like a must sell, but I think that's a good transfer. I'm not going to lie to you. I feel like Bruno is free from his shackles since Ten Hag has been sacked. Yeah, I mean, you could argue also a bit of player power. You know, look, I don't know. There is player power in football. We know this, right? Was Bruno Fernandes maybe like downing tools? I can't say for sure, but I mean, his form now is like sensational. He's gone up another level since Ten Hag has gone. So I don't know. There might be something to it. Finlay says 2.1 in the bank, 1 transfer, Delap to Brighton attacker or Foden out? That is a great question. I think I'd do Delap to Welbeck personally, and then do... Well, you don't have Saka or Bruno, to be fair. I'd be very tempted by that as well. You know what, Finlay? I'm looking at this myself. I'd also suggest a -4 hit. Sell Foden and Delap and buy Welbeck and either Saka or Fernandes. I think that looks really good. Which defender would you recommend I sell and for who? I have 0.3 in the bank. Porro. I'd sell Porro. I even said this 2-3 weeks ago, actually, in my Transfer Tips podcast. I don't get them all right, but some of them aren't too shabby. Yeah, he's the most expensive, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I can't get your message up, your previous one. But yeah, Porro out, and I'd be looking at Konate or Mazraoui. Of course, with Konate, not the best time to buy him, because after Southampton, you do have City, but I still like him. That's the rumour. De Bruyne may be tired of his national team and still the one to carry. He is very vocal about that. Well, especially since Hazard left or retired. You know, that definitely is the case now. Predicted points for next game week. I have shown all of that before. I might go for that one more time, but I don't want to, repeat myself too much and bore people who have already seen it. But I definitely don't want to predict my own points for next week. Whenever I'm asked that, I do badly. But this is the new FDR. In the bottom 5, we've got Forest, Palace, Liverpool, Spurs, and Man City until Game Week 17. Leicester City, Bournemouth, Ipswich Town, Wolves, and Newcastle in the top 5, with Arsenal and Villa just outside that elite club. As for the top 10, we've got Son in 10th, Watkins, Raul Jimenez, Palmer, De Bruyne, Foden, Isak, Saka, Salah, and Haaland. For me, Palmer should be much higher, but I do think Isak's a great shout there for the captaincy, and Saka has a great record against Nottingham Forest, but it's going to be a tough game for the Gunners. As for price changes, these are the potential ones. Raya could go down in price tonight. Hopefully not, since I've still got him and plan on keeping. As things stand, Romero, Akanji, Turner, Creswell, Lancashire, Sancho, Kwanzaa, and Adama Traore, all likely victims of price falls. As for Van Dijk, Mazraoui, Lewis Hall, and Kelleher, and Cunha, they could all rise in price tonight or in the next few days. Do not make early transfers unless you're going to be priced out. We've got in the international break now, a lot of football to be played, and we've already seen a lot of injuries so far this season in these pointless friendlies and stuff. As for Drafthound, this is what they're recommending for Game Week 13. I did show you Game Week 12 as well earlier. Let's actually look a bit further ahead to Game Week 14. So the chances of 2+ goals definitely lies in City's favour. Pretty much in every game week bar 13 when they face Liverpool away. So in 14, they are top against Forest, and in second is Arsenal, but their chances aren't too high against United. Spurs, Chelsea and Palace also in the top 5, but these will be updated over the next few days, and Drafthound always update their predicted points and algorithms. Check out the link in the description below. A lot of you have signed up using my link and talk about how useful Drafthound is. Let me just put a link in the live chat to make it even easier for you to get access. But trust me, it's a very good resource, and they actually recommended Salah and Cunha in for the last week or two, and in the end I took their advice finally, and it paid off massively. So let's keep on plugging away at the likes. Let's get this stream to 200 plus. It would be massively appreciated, and also, yeah, just keep on subscribing, supporting the channel, and thank you to those that have really pushed us up towards new goals across all social media platforms. So let's see if I can quickly put this up. All right, there we go. Took me a while. Goldhead says, looks like I'll be stuck with my double C defense for a while due to other areas of concern. I'm in a similar boat with Arsenal, but I'm a bit more confident in their defense compared to City, although admittedly both of them have been useless defensively for quite some time now. Captaining Salah all game week. It seems too easy though. I think Palmer is a great alternative shout. We're going to have a lot of big dilemmas, I think. So let's go back to my FPL team. I showed my FPL challenge squad earlier. I got 62 points with Anana 9, 8 Nuri clean sheet, Son with 8 points, Salah 17, and Haaland 14. That's because of shots on target, of course. Thoughts on João Pedro? He's been asked, should I say, I've been asked a lot about him today. I will cover him in more detail in the Transits podcast. I would be a bit hesitant about lunging in for him as I did back in Game Week 4. My preference is Danny Welbeck right now. Who do I sell first? Wait, for some reason, did the message come through? Yeah, Borro or Lewis. Probably the Spaniard because he's more expensive. But yeah, they're ultimately both sells. Yeah, and Mbeumo's definitely worth keeping. For now, anyway. Would you go for Bruno or Saka for the long term? Saka. Trent and Wood versus Konate and Isak. Which pairing is good in the long term? If Trent is fit. Long-term Konate and Isak. It's just Newcastle's fixtures are right up there, whilst Forest are bottom over the next 6. They're both great duos though, don't get me wrong, but based on the fixtures long-term, I'd probably go for the other one. I'd go for Konate and Isak right now. MVRX Rapids says, Raya, Konate, Robinson, Gavardio, and Mbeumo, Salah, Palmer, Son, Rodgers, Cunha, Havertz. Would you roll or make a move, and if so, which? It's a good squad to be fair, but I would possibly consider Son to either Saka or Fernandes, and you could even do something like Havertz to Isak. I do like the look of it, if you've got the funds, of course. Powerful wildcard draft, also in the structure 3-5-2 with the same midfield, and maybe Raul or João Pedro / Welbeck to rotate with Semenyo. I like that. It's a very, very good structure, in my opinion. Palmer being 10th and Haaland top is crazy. Was that in reference to Fantasy Football Hub? Yeah, Palmer should be way higher. I definitely agree. I know it's free, but the assistant manager in fpl.team is actually so ass. It's telling me to sell 8 Nuri or Garnacho. Sometimes they've got decent suggestions, but with fpl.team, the best part about it is you can visualize future game weeks. It's so useful to having a clear idea of upcoming fixture swings, captaincy dilemmas, players you want to bring in. So I think it's a great website, to be honest, but it's not perfect, and none of them are, to be honest. Oppo says Foden to Palmer and Højlund Solanke to Isak with a -4, or keep patience and play Højlund without taking a hit. Don't get me wrong, mate. I think Højlund is inevitably a sell unless Ruben Amorim fixes this supply issue that Højlund experiences at Man United. He doesn't take that many shots, but I think Isak is a clear upgrade. I wouldn't do it for a -4 though, with Man United facing Ipswich Town and Everton in the next 2. So my advice is to keep Højlund for now anyway. As much as I'd love to say buy Isak, I wouldn't do it for a -4 hit right now. Oscar says 1 free transfer. What would you change? 0.4 in the bank. So the double up in the Forest defence could be an issue for you over the next day. I don't see many clean sheets, but of course you keep them for Ipswich Town at home in 13. I would look at selling McNeil and Johnson. And unfortunately, I think Haaland might have to be a sacrifice for you if you want to also upgrade Lancashire and have 3 playing forwards to rotate with your 5 midfielders, and then buy a Saka or Fernandes in the midfield to replace McNeil and Johnson. I think by selling Haaland, you could make all of this possible, whilst also buying Isak up front. So just something to consider, but I think that's probably what you want to do. So Oscar, the 2 players you really want to sell for me are McNeil and Johnson. Despite Saka being third, I would avoid him for Nottingham Forest. Look, Forest have been really impressive, but they did concede 3 today, and I do think Arsenal will improve with the upcoming fixture run, and Saka's a good record against Forest. I agree that maybe Fernandes is better for the next 2 game weeks, but I think long-term Saka is a set-and-forget option in your team, unless he gets injured again. Thank you, Sydney. I appreciate it. I hope Liverpool beat Southampton 9-0. I hope they don't. I hope Southampton can shithouse a 1-0 win. Even if I captain Salah, I don't give a crap. But it's not happening. Liverpool are going to win by 3 or 4. Look, I wouldn't bet past them to win 9-0, but I'm going to say no. I'll definitely captain Salah this time. I won't go different. Yeah, hopefully we jinx him, Sahil. That's all I'm going to say. Goldhead says, oh, I've also got double Arsenal defence. They're definitely being held on to. You got 2 defensive double-ups. That's crazy. You definitely need one of them to turn things around, especially as a United fan, since you probably don't want Liverpool winning it, but it's looking good for them. Best budget keeper for Wildcard. Sanchez, if you can class him as one, 4.7. I think Onana is slightly better, but the reason why I went for Sanchez in my provisional team is because I've got Mazraoui in the 50-man squad. I wouldn't double up on United defensively. Do not do that. You think Palmer will score ahead of this season? Possibly. I'd say yeah. I'd say yeah. It already happened before. If any big margin scoring this season. Or City. City are still capable of that. Is Haaland a sell? I think Haaland is still a good choice. So I personally think he'll score a brace against Tottenham. That's my current prediction. And I think City will bounce back and win. But I just think at that price, if you're not going to captain him that much, and you can buy Palmer, Salah, I said this last week as well, and the last couple of weeks, and also buy a Saka, buy Isak up front, and Trent or Konate, I'd rather go for that sort of structure. It just makes it much easier. There's going to be some bad weeks where Haaland goes off and some of your players just kind of underwhelm, but I'm going to struggle to find many occasions where a midfield 3 of Palmer, Saka, and Salah, all 3 of them will blank, and you're going to do terribly. It's not going to happen very often. How much longer is ESR good for? He's still decent, to be fair. It's just, if you can upgrade him to Salah by downgrading Haaland, then I'd probably do it. And I prefer Rodgers and Semenyo right now. But if we look at Fulham's fixtures, they're actually not that bad. So for the next 5, they are close to the bottom. But if we do look a bit longer term, actually, so until like Game Week 20, so we're talking about basically a 9 game week period. Let's actually go to Game Week 21. So a 10 game week period here. Fulham are 4th. So Arsenal top, Bournemouth 2nd, Villa 3rd, Fulham 4th, and Chelsea 5th. So yeah, I definitely think you could keep them long term, especially if you've got other fires to put out. Bob says, I've made transfers already. If I hit my wild card, will I lose my transfers? No. So that's actually good. That's what I've been talking about earlier. Unless you're planning to wildcard this week and you're absolutely set on it, do not make early transfers for those with no wildcards, of course, and just wait for more information, and there could be injuries and stuff. But in your case, that's the right thing to do. So you go in early, you chase these price changes, build up team value, then you can wildcard later this week. It cancels out all hits, and you keep your free transfers in the future. So don't worry about it. You're fine. Path says, Lewis, Solanke, Rodgers to Mazraoui, Bruno and Isak, Joao Pedro for -8 worth it. Or which transfer should I do? They're all good transfers, but do you need all 4 of those players? Do you not have a decent bench option to come in to maybe prevent a -4 or a -8 hit? And I like Rodgers actually for game week 12 against Palace at home. I only sold him because I bought Salah, and it made sense for me. But overall, I think the -8 is fine. I do prefer Welbeck though over Joao Pedro. Although you do say Isak / Joao Pedro. So yeah, in that case, I go for Isak. Trent is fine. He picked up an injury against Villa. It's not too serious, it seems. There were some scans done. There will be even more over the next few days, but I provided the update earlier. It's looking good at the moment. Fair enough, TXMN. I think it's definitely understandable and plausible if you're going to be priced out, 100%. But if you can help it, try not to make early transfers. That's kind of my 2 cents on it. What's the average? I'd assume it's around 50 to 60 It depends what rank you're at as well. Let me actually check. I'm not sure exactly how to tell. Maybe fpl.team has this. Yeah, I think my guess would be 50 plus. I did Son to Haaland, sorry, Son to Salah, Haaland to Cunha, Solanke to Wissa. Great transfers in. I do think Wissa, beyond the next two, doesn't have a great run of fixtures. I think he'll still do well. And from an attacking perspective, they'll score goals, but not as many as they probably have done in recent games. I do think there could be a drop-off there, but I'm completely on board, especially for the next two. Hopefully you do gain some points. I think you deserve it. FPL.team telling me to get Davis for 8 Nuri. Nah, just keep 8 Nuri. The reason why I bought him is because he's got 8 great fixtures until 18. Well, maybe that's the wrong way to say it, because Fulham away isn't a great fixture, but good fixtures overall in that 8 game week period. I wouldn't be selling 8 Nuri. Yeah, 2 defensive double-ups, but still managed to go from 1.02 million to 500k in 1 week. Yeah, still really good. Garnacho, Salah, and Fabianski, huge. Yeah, especially with Garnacho on the bench, that would have been very relieving for you. If the deadline was in 5 minutes, Sanchez or Onana on 12 wildcard. Sanchez still, because, once again, I would go for Mazraoui in my defensive line in a wildcard, and I wouldn't want to double up on Chelsea or United defensively. No worries, Miguel Mario. I'll talk more about him in the Transits podcast. I just covered Smith Rowe a few minutes ago, mate, so I still think he's a good budget midfielder, but I do prefer Rodgers and Semenyo still. Hopefully Trent doesn't go with England, not because of the injury is serious, but more so he gets rest to recover quicker from it. Well, the rumours do suggest that he has been playing through pain in the last couple of weeks, so it does make sense to get a rest. You can't really trust Carsley or England and these national teams to do the right thing sometimes. I get it that national teams is important, but I don't think these games are. You know, Nations League, European qualifiers, World Cup qualifiers, I mean, I'm kind of sick of them. The only reason I like international breaks is because, you know, I support a South American team, and I just think it's more competitive and there's actually more at stake. Didn't watch the... Let me just... Yeah, my live chat is kind of frozen. And let's not even get started on yesterday, the first stream I attempted, which was an absolute nightmare. Didn't watch the latest game. Is Saka's injury serious or not? Arteta said that it is serious, same with Declan Rice, but we can't trust Arteta too much with injury reports. I personally think Saka will be available for Game Week 12, but it might be a very, how do I say this? A very tight call. Do you think Liverpool win the league with more points than they'll win league with Klopp? Look, I agree that Liverpool are the best team in the league right now, but it's only 11 game weeks, and I think City could come back. With Arsenal, the gap is too big right now, and they need to massively improve to get back into it. But I wouldn't count them out officially, 100%. And with Man City, I still think they're the best team. Once they find that kind of formula and, how do I say this, they also find a way to cope without Rodri, I think they'll go on a great streak, especially in the second half of the season. If Liverpool were to win it, do I think they get more points? Definitely not. I think the points needed to win the title this year is going to be lower than last season and the year before, and that's why I'm very frustrated as an Arsenal fan, because I think the title was there for the taking and Arsenal just aren't there yet. Should I transfer in Boomer, Rodgers or Smith Rowe for Palmer? I'd still sell Smith Rowe here. I like him as an asset. He could do well against Wolves. Fulham are 4th in the FDR until Game Week 20, but I do prefer Boomer and Rodgers right now. Haaland and Johnson to Jackson and Salah for a -4. Yes, just bear in mind that Jackson is on 4 yellows, 1 more before Game Week 19, and he will be suspended for 1 Premier League match. And you've also got Isak. You've got Watkins, not to mention Welbeck, Cunha, and all these forwards I've discussed. Wiss is still good. My preference would be Isak if you can afford him. Up to 44k, Green Arrow, nice rank, going into international break. Very good stuff. What if it's not updated yet, but 67 points, I should still be around there. Well, yeah, check livefpl.net. That's where you can get the updated ranks. I think on the FPL website, you won't see your rank until, well, let's say for 2-3 more hours, basically. Sanchez or Verbruggen in goal on the wildcard. Still Sanchez for me, but Verbruggen's a decent shout. He's probably the best way of covering Brighton defensively. And maybe another wildcard option would be Dunk, if he's available, for Game Week 12. So yeah, there's quite a lot to think about. Brighton are certainly worth targeting, going for 1 or 2 assets. Not a triple up though. National team like part-time job or national service. Players will go out when qualifying and tournaments like Euros and World Cup. Look, I love international football and I personally like international breaks, especially this one. It comes at a good time. I want to switch off a little bit from FPL if possible. But yeah, I just think European qualifiers and stuff, players getting injured in pointless games, I'm kind of sick of it. Miguel Mario 8 says, Haaland out for Jackson and Saka Bruno in. Yes, as I just mentioned though, with Jackson, there is that suspension risk. I do prefer Isak, and I personally think Haaland will score a brace against Tottenham. But the reason why I think selling him is good for a lot of teams is because it gives you the funds to buy a Saka or a Bruno. My current preference would be Saka, looking at the long-term picture, and you can also have Palmer and Salah, and a very balanced squad overall. Wish we got rid of Ten Hag earlier. I wish he was still here, mate, so I'm a bit gutted about that. Our Forest defence is sell now. If you've got a double up, I'd look to sell one of them. So if you've got Sells and Aina, you could possibly sell at least one. But I think you could still... You know what? If I had even a double up, I'd keep them. Possibly bench against Arsenal, start them against Ipswich, and then look to sell because the fixtures until Gameweek 18 are quite poor. The only clean sheet I could see on paper is in Gameweek 13. TXMN216 says, other than your channel, which other FPL content creators do you recommend to watch? You give very good tips, by the way. I appreciate it. So I don't watch too much now, but when I first started, FPL Tips was like the go-to channel, and I think it's like a different sort of content. I think it's still up there. Planet FPL is definitely one of the best. I think they've got really good podcasts, not just about FPL, but also football. So they're kind of like my top two. Black Box is also another really good one. It all depends on what you want to see, though. Kind of long form videos or kind of short to the point. So I think what I gave you kind of gives you a mixture of all those things. So in-depth analysis, I think Planet FPL and Black Box. And then for more concise videos, I think FPL Tips is still probably the best one, in my opinion. So that's kind of like my top three. But there are so many. You could argue it's a saturated or oversaturated market. Welcome, Finley. Good to see you. Easy99 says predicted lineup for Amarin, new Man United, and formation. So his preferred formation is 3-4-2-1, and some sources do indicate he will kind of really implement it from the beginning. My personal feeling, and I could be wrong about this, is he'll go for a 4-2-3-1, especially with the current injuries and absentees. So once Yoro's back, for example, you could see a back three of Yoro, Lisandro Martinez, and De Ligt. For now, though, I think it's going to be Dallo, Mazraoui as the fullbacks, Lisandro Martinez, and I think it's basically going to be similar to what we've seen recently, by the way. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So Lisandro Martinez and De Ligt, Anana in goal, a midfield pivot of Ugarte and probably Casemiro. Once Mainoo's back, though, that could certainly be different. I think the three attackers will be... I think it'll be Garnacho, and I'm just a bit conflicted about Amad Diallo versus Rashford. So on the right, Diallo's the only natural right winger that United actually have, apart from Anthony. I'm going to say Rashford for now. Bruno Fernandes attacking midfield, and then Højlund up front, but we'll see more chance creation for these assets. Over time, I think this will transition to a 3-4-2-1, and we could see Fernandes playing as like the right sort of attacking midfielder, like Pedro Gonçalves at Sporting. Keep Forest assets until Ipswich. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying right now. I'd definitely keep Chris Wood for that. And even Aina is worth keeping. You bench him against Arsenal, in my opinion. Although, don't be surprised if Forest got a result there. But I think I'd keep them for now. What? Got the same ref Wolves had, and Nino's a possibility. I think the ref went heavy on Wolves in FPL. Oh, wow. I didn't see the full game, to be honest. Referees are terrible. Sometimes I do feel like they are biased. That's the way I see it. So maybe you're correct about that. Hi, Dylan. Good morning. Is it good morning? How can we check league weekly ranking private leagues? Well, from time to time, I do show how people are doing in the FPL Dylan League. You can join. There is an auto-join link in the description below. But yeah, the points and stuff will be updated in a few hours' time, and you can see how things are going there. Well, Ideal, that is a good question. And once my chat can load, that'd be great. So why is it even a competition? Basically, the answer is money. Money, money, money. And they're trying to like incentivize these national teams to kind of put, you know, stronger teams out, play more football, and have another competition on top of it. But yeah, I'm just not really on board Yeah, this chat has just bugged out. Hopefully there's no lag or anything. Let me know if there are any issues. We did experience quite a few yesterday. What else do we have here? Latino Dialect says, Dylan, do you lose all of the transfers that you stacked before when you hit the free hit chip? Like you had 2 before, you go for the free hit, and the next game week, do you still have 2? I might be wrong about this because I'm more sure about the wildcard where there are changes this season. The transfers no longer reset to 0. I believe that's also the case with the free hit chip, but I will admit I'm not fully sure about it. So I'm going to double check now for you and give you confirmation because it's something I should know. And I'll be honest, I didn't pay too much attention to that. So with a free hit, let's see if I can get... I'm not going to show it on screen, by the way. I've just got it in a separate tab. I'm going to see it here. Do they actually say it here? Yeah. So yeah, I was right. I just wasn't sure about the free hit fully, but it's basically like the wildcard chip. So any transfers you had before won't reset to 0. You will still have the transfers you had before. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Or do you have 3 then? Right, I see what you're saying. You will still have 2. You'll still have 2. Instead of getting another one, that won't be the case. You will just keep what you had from before. Thank you, Latino Dialects, as well. The World Cup, Euros, and Copa are enough for international. Yeah, same with AFCON and all the the continental competitions, but Nations League is just. I do like the well, there's now the Finalissima, but I think Confederations Cup is fine, but Nations League is just too far. No worries, Latino. Dialects. Where do we find out mystery chip? We find out in January. Yeah, I'm asked this in most streams, and I'll be honest, in the last couple, I've kind of like not really given an answer because I'm completely unsure about it. Some people think it'll be the Limitless chip from UCL Fantasy, so like a free hit, but with no budget restrictions. You go for the most expensive players in the game. That wouldn't surprise me, but I think it'll be something different, and what that will be, I couldn't tell you. Bench 2, Foden, Aina, Wood, Son, Gvardiol. I'd bench Aina and possibly Gvardiol. I think Spurs, City, both teams score. Son and Foden can get some returns, but at the same time, I'd be tempted to sell at least one of them to Fernandes or Saka. And of course, if you don't have Palmer, what are you waiting for? In Asia, there are many qualifiers round for World Cup. After the World Cup ended, there are Asian Cup qualifiers happening after that. Yeah, it's a long process. I understand that. But yeah, it's just with England, for example, European teams, like we get some of the same matchups every time, like Portugal, Luxembourg, England versus San Marino. It's boring. Like we know they're going to win. There might be like 1 in 100 times where we get a shock, but it's just very, very rare. Yeah, I agree. That's essentially what it is. I would want the all-out attack. Yeah, I think that would be great. You know, that was a chip before. When I started making FPL content, you know, that was no longer a thing. But in my first season or 2 in FPL, the all-out attack chip was actually very, you know, it was quite fun. So hopefully that happens. UEFA can follow that template, says Easy99. I mean, they'll do whatever is necessary to get more money. I mean, look at the extended Champions League format. You know, from my personal perspective, you know, the league phase table has been quite interesting so far. Teams like Madrid and Bayern are struggling a little bit. But, yeah, look, I mean, we'll wait and see. Is Joao Pedro on pens? Yes. When he's on the pitch, he is on pens. The other ones to look out for from Brighton would be Welbeck, actually. Welbeck is also kind of like second in command. During the preseason friendlies, I believe there was one occasion where Welbeck took the penalty whilst Joao Pedro was on the pitch. But I do think the Brazilian is slightly ahead in the pecking order. Is Gameweek 13 the best time to get Saka? I still think Forest at home. Like I mentioned before, good record against them. I think Arsenal will win that game, but maybe I'm just being a foolish, stubborn little twat. But yeah, I think Saka is still a good option in Gameweek 12. I don't think you make a bad point or a bad question. On paper, you could argue West Ham away is a very enticing fixture. That's the best time to do it, but I'll be honest, I still say Gameweek 12 if he's fit. Had Salah but captain Bruno. Amazing week. Inside lower 400k in rank. Nicely played. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hoping Bruno went a bit quiet in one of my mini leagues. You know, one of my competitors was captaining Bruno Fernandes, so obviously fair play to him and you as well. But yeah, Salah for me, just so consistent. I'm a bit boring with my captaincy picks. I kind of go for these really consistent options. Fernandes used to be that sort of option, but this season it has been very hit and miss. But now we're seeing him enter some really good form. Pedro in my team this week, I don't care. That's fair enough. I just prefer Welbeck personally, but I think Joao Pedro is fine. Thoughts on the starting 11, says Michael. Henderson, Gabriel, Nuri, Robertson, Salah, Palmer, Smith Rowe, Mbeumo, Wissa, Haaland, Cunha. I don't know. I feel like it's too dependent on a not so strong team. That was my issue, Michael, when I had Haaland. I even said this in Gameweek 2. When I triple captained him, I got 93 points. I was doing really well in terms of rank. My issue always was I'm relying so much on Haaland, and if he doesn't do the business as my captain, I feel like I'm going to have a bad week, and that's not something you want to feel. I'm much more confident in my 50-man squad now because I sold him. But I have to say, your team's looking quite good, in my opinion. So 8-0 against Fulham away, not the greatest. Same with Cunha, but not the worst. I might even start both of them this week anyway. Gabriel is fine, in my opinion. I think he'll start getting some returns soon. Really good midfield, by the way. I think that's really strong. I wouldn't change much this week. So yeah, I think you're in a good position, actually. It's really, really strong. But maybe, you could make a goalkeeper change. I think Henderson is definitely expendable. Long term, I think Sanchez might be your best pick, or Verbruggen in goal. And if you've got a bit of money to spare and you're not going for United defender, Nana is probably the best goalkeeper in the game on paper. New UCL format is more interesting than the old format. In the old format, big teams already qualified after 4 games. For the most part, you are right. And nobody cares for the next 2 matches. Yeah, I mean, they basically copied the Super League and their format. I would prefer to get Palmer next game week and then Son to Saka. That's fair enough, but Palmer against Leicester. I mean, Bruno Fernandes just got 17 points against them, and for me, Palmer is better than Bruno Fernandes. I'm not saying he's going to get 17 or more, but it's possible. I think Palmer's a buy this week. I can bring Palmer in for either Foden, Semenyo, or Rodgers. 6.9 in the bank. I'd probably sell Foden, mate. But over the next few weeks, you could definitely make the case of also selling one of Semenyo or Rodgers to Fernandes or Saka. So, yeah, I'd just probably sell Foden. I think Rodgers and Semenyo have better fixtures this week on paper. And it's also just the question of Foden. He has been poor, goals and assists-wise, in the Premier League. Haaland or Salah on Wildcard? Salah. Salah right now, quite sure. Favorite country you've been to? Probably Argentina. Trying to look beyond them because that'd be biased. I think Greece. Greece would be up there. Greece or Spain. I'd give the edge to Greece, I think. Got 70 points, but if Pedro was first on my bench, it would have been 79. Still 70 points, mate. Of course, it's a bit frustrating when that sort of thing happens, but trust me, that's still really good. Raya versus Saliba. Still Raya for me, but Gabriel is definitively the best way of covering Arsenal defensively. So if it was Gabriel Raya, I'd go for Gabriel. But in this instance, I would still give the edge to David Raya, who might go down in price tonight. Only 1 free transfer, says Pratic. Yeah, you can even take a -4. I'm not against that. I might even do it myself this week and be very aggressive. But yeah, my gut feeling is selling Foden, which could backfire. I'm aware of that. International break may be good for Pep and his staff to figure out what's happening to his team. Yeah, also with Arsenal, the last international break disrupted their momentum. Hopefully this one, it goes the other way around. But it's a long season. I think Liverpool will dip, but I still think they are the best team in the league right now. And I think they'll stay in this title race until the end. But trust me, it's still very early days and City will bounce back. I'm not concerned about that at all. Yeah, Pickford's a good shout, but a bit of an awkward time to buy him now. Beyond the next 2 game weeks, I mean, Everton, from game week 15 to 18, they face Liverpool, Manchester City, Arsenal and Chelsea. Look, Everton can produce a surprise result. They did it last season against Liverpool, but I don't really see it this time round. Foden flop of the season so far, from best Premier League player to nothing player. He has played well recently, though. Against Brighton and Bournemouth, I think he's very unlucky not to walk away with at least a goal or assist. But you're right, in terms of the grand scheme of things, the expectation, having a poor Euros, obviously being the best Premier League player, according to the awards he won. I personally think Rodri should have won it. I think without Rodri, maybe City don't win the league last season, and it might be the case this year as well. Sahil says Raya, Mazraoui, Aït-Nouri, Gabriel, Salah, Captain, Mbeumo, Son, Foden, ESR, Cunha, Wood, bench, Aina, Gvardiol, doing Foden to Palmer for free. I'd even consider Gvardiol over Wood in your starting 11, but I think you'd be more comfortable benching a City defender on their current form than Chris Wood, who has been excellent this season. More Liverpool or Arsenal players on the wildcard? Good question. So at the moment, I'm going for 2 Liverpool for sure. If I was wildcarding now. And with Arsenal, it's either 1 or 2, depending on how you want to play it. So, yeah, I think essentially, if I had to pick one, it'd be more Liverpool. But not by much. Not really. Arguably, you could go for 2 from each, and that's fine. I wouldn't triple up on Liverpool or Arsenal right now. Personally, I think the international break was a good timing for us. It will give Amorim time to work with the team. Yeah, of course, a lot of the players will be out on international break, but you are correct, especially those that haven't been called up. It could certainly, really help him. It gives him a bit of breathing room, so you're right about that. So either Sanchez or Verbruggen is best for the next few. I think so. I do think Onana in isolation might be better, but if you're going for Mazraoui or Dalot, I'd rather not double up on United defensively. The problem with that, though, Helmet, is that Watkins has good fixtures now. But I do admit, Isak is the slightly better option at the moment. He's in great form, so I'm not against it at all. I just think it's always risky when you sell a high-quality player like Watkins, but my gut feeling right now is to do it. Terry says, is it worth taking out Trent, Lewis, and Stewart out for Konate, Mazraoui, and Isak for -8? I love the transfers in. Even for a -8 hit, my only issue is selling Trent when he faces Southampton away. I could see him get a clean sheet, an assist, and doing really well. I know he's yellow flagged right now, but the latest updates are quite positive. I get that you need to sell Trent to bring in Isak. Ultimately, if I had to say yes or no, I'd say yes. I'm just saying, be very wary about selling Trent for massive hits. I've done it before a few years ago, and it was one of the worst weeks I've ever had in FPL. I just did a -32 to get Maddison. To get rid of him, surely, right? You're not going to buy Maddison now, are you? Good alternative for Wood. I don't have any money in the bank, or is he a hold in your opinion? No, hold Chris Wood for now, but he's arguably a sell from Gameweek 14 onwards. I've always said that. But you don't sell him before he has Ipswich Town in Gameweek 13. I might even captain him that week. I already have Wissa and Haaland as my other strikers. That's fair. Really good forward line. Isak and Welbeck, even Joao Pedro will be on your radar. So yeah, those would be the answers for the alternatives to Chris Wood and Haaland if you're looking to sell. But I wouldn't sell Chris Wood just yet. I'd buy Isak, Omar, as I covered in my best wildcard team video recently. I like Jackson, but one more yellow before Gameweek 19 and he'll be suspended for 1 Premier League match. And I think Isak's form is also enticing, so I would go for the Newcastle striker. Morpheus says Mbumo, Salah, Bruno, Palmer, Saka midfield. That is the best midfield 5 right now. I definitely agree with you. But you've also got budget gems like Smith Rowe, Semenyo, and Rodgers, so there are always different choices, but I like that. No worries, Ilko. I appreciate it. Foden was the biggest disappointment for me. He flopped, and it has complicated to sell. Finally, I will finally get rid of him. Yeah, I think Palmer's just a massive upgrade, generally speaking. Don't be surprised if Foden scores. That's kind of the way of FPL, but I just don't see Foden keeping pace with Palmer this season. Predict any player outside the Prem that can be transferred in January? I don't know, man. That's a difficult one. I think Arsenal and City need to make a few moves in the transfer window, but Arsenal, as always, they leave themselves short. They should have done in the summer, and I don't see them really doing it in January, if I'm being quite honest with you. I think Gyökeres will be a major transfer to a Premier League club, but maybe not in January. Difficult to tell. H. Lehman says, I have Palmer and Salah captain and Haaland, but his price ain't justifying his returns. I agree. Feel like selling him, but I don't rate the other premiums, attack, midfielders, defenders, only Salah and Palmer. I get that. And this week, I think Haaland scores a brace against Tottenham. I'd be very surprised if he didn't score against them, let me put it that way. And he's a great captaincy shout as a result. The reason why I sold him last week is because when I was thinking about my future transfers, not just in Gameweek 11, I just thought the best way of achieving the funds is by selling Haaland. It's just the best way to do it. And I've got a more balanced squad as a result. I get what you're saying, but Isak's in great form right now. Watkins is a good striker. Jackson is a decent forward. Not to mention you've got so many budget forwards. I'm not saying go for 3 budget forwards. I don't think you should do that. I think 2 is probably enough. And I would recommend 1 mid-price to premium forward. But then having that on top of Saka, Palmer, Bruno Fernandes potentially, and of course Salah. Then you've got Konate at the back or Trent / Gabriel. I think that's a very strong squad that will return a lot of points and you're not over-reliant on one player. That's the problem with Haaland for a lot of people. by having him, especially alongside Salah, you're going to be very reliant on these players, especially Haaland, to kind of deliver week in, week out. And when he doesn't, you're going to feel that your overall team is weaker. Isak to Arsenal should be a transfer in January. It's just not going to happen, though. Newcastle selling to Arsenal, especially in January. I mean, it'd probably take 200 million or something to make that happen. And Arsenal aren't going to do it, unfortunately. Is it time for Liverpool defence? Konate is one of my recommended buys this week, actually. But they do face City in Game Week 13. I don't think it's like the ideal time to buy them overall. I do think Liverpool might struggle for clean sheets over the next 4. With Game Week 12 being an exception, of course. But I definitely recommend Liverpool defenders in general. Look beyond the fixtures and just set and forget someone like Konate or Trent in the long term. Even Van Dijk. Bruno over Saka for Game Week 12? For Game Week 12, possibly. I still prefer Saka when you're looking at a long-term transfer, but I'm looking at both. I'll be honest, that's going to be one of my dilemmas this week. Who do I sell Foden to? And if I don't do that, or if I want to be aggressive, do I buy Welbeck for Solanke, or do I even make a defender transfer like Konate? There's a lot of things I could do this week. With only one free transfer, it will be difficult. I hope not easy 99, but it is possible with the links with Amrim, so never say never. Pratik says, what about Raul to Isak and Foden to Palmer? Yep, I'd do it. Even for a -4 hit, I'm on board. I think Jimenez could do well against his former club, but Isak is an upgrade, and Palmer over Foden, I mean, that's quite clear right now. Ugarte has been superb in the midfield, which is also a reason for Bruno playing forward, as he was benched with Ten Hag. He was slowly bedding into the league as well, and Ugarte does know Ruben Amorim, of course, from Sporting, so that could definitely help. Of course, we haven't seen that effect recently, but yeah, I think United are in a good position for the next couple of game weeks. But once the fixtures turn for the worse, there could be some bumps on the road. But honestly, I think Ruben Amorim will do a good job, and it wouldn't surprise me if United finish 4th this season. I don't think there is a standout team. Even Arsenal and City aren't looking great, so who knows? Even United and Chelsea could be very close to them. What are the best defensive options under 4.5 million? Joachim Andersen would be up there. I said this before his haul against Palace. He cleared it off the line against his former club as well. Not a big fan of others around 4.4 and under. I don't like Vandenberg, but if you just need a 4 million starting defender, he could be okay. I don't recommend him, though. I'll be honest. You know, I'm surprised he went up in price the other day. So yeah, Joachim Andersen is probably the best one. No worries, Terry. I appreciate the questions. Cunha, Robinson, Gabriel, Aina, Rodgers, and Raul. Which 2 would you play for next game week? And I have Raya as my keeper. I'd play Robinson, and I'd play Rodgers, but I'd find a way of starting Gabriel, despite the fact you've got Raya in your team already. But I'd definitely start Rodgers this week, no doubt about it. Wait, and Raul. Oh, I wouldn't bench Raul. You've got a really strong team then if you're benching some of these players. I'd definitely bench Aina. Let me put it that way. And I'd possibly bench Cunha and start the rest if possible. Hippo Block says Josh sold Haaland to Cunha and Smith Rowe to Salah. Now I have Saka, Palmer and Salah. I like that. I mean, good transfers in. I think Haaland will do well against Tottenham, but it's about the spreading of funds and what you can achieve by selling him. Just be careful with Saka. Arteta said the injury is serious. We'll see, if he's available for Game Week 12. I think he will be, but let's see what happens over the next few weeks. Best goalkeeper. Try not to spam the chat, mate, but I think Onana, Sanchez, and Verbruggen are the top 3. The reason why on a wildcard I'd probably go for Sanchez is because I'd also recommend somebody like Mazraoui or Dalot in the defence, and I wouldn't double up on United defensively. Cunha or Isak right now? Isak. And thank you to Stepaki for moderating the chat. So yeah, Hippo Block, that's been covered. Gali says, sold McNeil and Haaland to Salah and Cunha. Still got 1 free transfer, thinking Johnson to Bruno. Yeah, looks really good to me. Not sure how much money you have in the bank. I think Saka could be a better long-term transfer, but he is an injured out at the moment. Yeah, I'm on board with it. Don't make the transfer yet, though, unless you want to gain a bit of value. I understand it, but I think it's best to not use all of your free transfers just yet. Thoughts on McNeil to Bowen, Game Week 13. West Ham's fixtures do turn for the better, although they do have Arsenal in Game Week 14, I believe. No, sorry, in Game Week 13, actually. I'd probably suggest buying Bowen in Game Week 14 in that case, but he has scored against Arsenal in the past. Who would be better to rotate with Robinson, Nuri or Hall? I still prefer 8 Nuri for the attacking potential. But Lewis was fine. You know, he's looking very impressive recently. He's starting consistently, and Newcastle getting victories. I already have Gabriel and Kanate. Probably still 8 Nuri for me. If any player from EPL team transfers to another one in January, but already has 3 maximum players in FPL, how does that affect the team? Well, basically, you can still have 4 players for like a game week or 2, but the next time you want to make a transfer, you'll be forced to sell one of those players from that team that you have 4 players from. So hopefully that makes it clear. So yeah, you aren't able to basically have 4 players for the rest of the season, unless you never make another transfer. Thank you, Morpheus. Massively appreciated. Keep plugging away at the likes. We'll be wrapping up fairly soon. We have gone through hundreds of questions as always. And keep your eyes peeled for more FPL and UCL fantasy content. There will be the transfer tips for Game Week 12, the best wildcard team, my transfer plans, and then the following week, once I'm back from my holiday, I'll try to upload updated versions of those videos, including the team selection, where I've got so many different transfer plans, despite the fact I've only got 1 available move for free. I'm even open to taking a -4 hit and being very aggressive. And of course, straight afterwards, UCL Fantasy videos will be back for Matchday 5, the best Limitless and Wildcard teams, the team selection, and of course all the deadline streams and reactions coming your way. We are 13th, but not far from 4th. Defense has been better. Hopefully with Amarim, the chance creation gets better. Very tired at the moment in the Prem, with the exception of Liverpool, who are the only consistent team right now. I do feel by the time we get to the end of the year, we'll have a clearer picture of where things are. Will we have a title race? Will City bounce back and stuff like this? And which teams will pull away from the rest of the pack? But I think United will be in that kind of pack alongside Chelsea, Aston Villa, maybe Tottenham, of fighting for 4th. I just don't see Tottenham doing it. So for me, if I had to kind of like guess right now, I think Chelsea or United will finish 4th. So yeah, Pro Footy, as I just mentioned, I wouldn't do it in 13 because West Ham play Arsenal, but it's up to you. Thank you, Twisted Parky, as always. Yeah, Kirkez is decent, to be fair. That's another good shout at 4.5 million and below. You're right to highlight him. I just don't trust Bournemouth defensively. Who would you bench from Cunha, Raul, and Wood? I'd bench Chris Wood. Sign Palmer or Fernandes. Palmer is by far the better asset. I'd go for him. Haaland and Johnson to Isak and Salah for a -4. Yes, but Haaland is still a good choice. Just remember, the reason for selling him is to spread the funds and build a stronger squad, not because Haaland won't score or that he's terrible. Yeah, look, Kirkez is decent in terms of attacking threat. I don't think he'll get that many assists this season, personally. Of course, very impressive against City. I personally would look elsewhere. Joachim Andersen is my preference at 4.5 and below. Mazraoui too. And then you've got Kanate, Gabriel, and these other options I've discussed recently. Wow, Alex says trying to hold a top 15 rank. That's ridiculous. Gonna get Isak for a 4.5 striker and sell Borro for a max 4.7 defender. Mazraoui for me. But the alternative, I mean, people have mentioned Kirkez, which is fine. But I think Joachim Andersen could be really good, especially this week against Wolves. I would give Fulham the edge in that game. So yeah, I love the Isak transfer. That looks great. I would buy Mazraoui or Joachim Andersen for your potential price tag. Let me know what you think. Yeah, I mentioned that before, Zen. Thank you very much. Same with Declan Rice as well, by the way. His injury also doesn't look great. The fact they didn't finish the game as well is very concerning, but we do have a few weeks left. Like the video, people. Read the words, Dylan. Thank you very much, Morpheus. Thanks for replying to my Haaland dilemma. I'll just stick with this. Raya / Fabianski, Robinson, Aitnuri, Konsa, Lewis, Greaves, Salah, Palmer, Mbeumo, Rodgers, Semenyo, Erling Haaland, Wissa, and Raul. Yeah, still looks really strong, mate, but yeah, there is room for improvement. Same with my team, is far from perfect, don't get me wrong. Greaves will be back for you. I just think the defensive line needs a bit of improvement, but the midfield and attack looks very, very good. Looking at Mbeumo to Saka, Game Week 14 will result in dropping Trent to Gabriel and maybe Watkins. Do you think Arsenal will go on a good run? I bloody hope so, mate. Otherwise, I'm just checked out of this season and don't give a crap. I also think Arsenal will go on a good run, but we'll wait and see. I mean, Arsenal, it's always a bit of a weird one with them. I don't see Liverpool losing much, though. Oh, yeah, definitely. I don't think Liverpool will lose 5 games this season. Or at least not 5 more games. But yeah, look, football's a funny game. I do think they'll have a tough period and they will drop off a little bit and City could capitalise. But it's a long season and currently they are the best team in the league. Don't mention Champs League. 60 seconds to go. I sold Gyökeres. Yeah, I sold him quite late. Look, I don't think anybody expected City to get battered like that. And there were 2 penalties involved, to be fair. I think there was a massive swing, a bit of variance, and a bit of bad luck. Arsenal never make it easy, long way to go. Yeah, look, you're right. It's not completely over. But I just think based on the first 11 game weeks, in terms of performances, injuries, a few circumstances, it just doesn't seem like Arsenal's year. It could change, and it's all down to them. I blame them for dropping points today against Newcastle and Bournemouth, but they still have it in them to go on a massive run. But it has to be almost perfect to then surpass City and then Liverpool with that points advantage. Worcester's great for the next 2 game weeks, mate, but there is a fixture swing after that where I still back Brentford to do well offensively, so having Mbeumo or Worcester's fine, but I wouldn't double up on Brentford, even with their attackers in that time frame. -8, always a bad decision, says Mohsen. Not always. I think most of the time you're right. I'm looking at a -4 hit this week, which would be my first of the season, actually. Yeah, my first hit of the season, if I do it. But yeah, it's all team dependent, in my opinion. I think I saw somebody take a -20 this week, and he still gained 12 points. Isak or Watkins for the next game weeks, or any other striker? Isak. The other strikers I'd recommend include Welbeck. I'm really high on him, especially with the fixture run, his consistency. João Pedro is also on radar, but I do prefer Welbeck right now. Cunha's still good. I wouldn't buy him for Fulham away, necessarily. But of course, I bought him for a reason. I do like him, and hopefully he continues his form. Thank you, Michael Donnelly. Dylan, many thanks as ever. Great content. Thank you very much. Start Hall with West Ham at home, or 8 Nuri with Fulham away. Lewis Hall. The only kind of, point I'd go against that, I can't even speak English. The only reason I'd possibly consider 8 Nuri is the attacking potential. I don't think Newcastle or Wolves are guaranteed a clean sheet. If anything, I think Newcastle have a better chance. That's why I recommend Lewis Hall. But attacking-wise, there's no competition. I think 8 Nuri offers far more in terms of goal threat and assist potential. I have 4.5 in the bank, 82 points, 72k overall. Raul to Isak -4. Great position to be in. As much as I like Isak, I'd probably keep Jimenez against his former club. That's my current thinking. Raul to Cunha or Welbeck? I'd go to Welbeck. And should I hold Solanke? He's still decent, but you know what I'd actually do? I'd sell Solanke to Welbeck. Keep Raul, start him against Wolves. I think that's the best play. Arsenal always plays with our feelings, I think. Let's go Arsenal always. That's one way of putting it. Of course, supporting your club is always a roller coaster, isn't it? But yeah, Arsenal have been very frustrating in the last 2 decades, let's put it that way. And unfortunately, that's when I was born. So when is the next wildcard available? Game Week 20. How would you get Isak, Salah, Trent, Saka and Palmer on a wildcard? So I did show you a structure earlier, but it doesn't have Trent. I don't think that's too... it's not unachievable, should I say. So let's try to build this quite quickly. So let's get the players up on screen. You did say Saka. Well, it might mean... Let's do it. Okay, let's see what we can do. This might not be great, but it might require Cunha downgraded to a budget striker. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the easiest way to achieve this. Then you could do Konate to Trent. We'll see how much money I have in the bank. 0.6. I could then upgrade him to João Pedro maybe. But then I've still got Welbeck. I wouldn't necessarily double up on them, would I? Let's see. Semenyo to Rodgers could also work. Welbeck. Let's see who we could go to. Maybe Strand Larsen. Yeah, something like this could work, mate. I don't think it's necessarily that bad. Mbeumo is arguably a sell in the next couple of weeks anyway. And, of course, you are specifically for Trent, Saka, Salah, Palmer and Isak. But you could also do Fernandes in for one of those players, especially Saka in this case. But yeah, let me know what you think, mate. I think that's fairly solid, actually. And you might have even more money in the bank to make that happen. Thank you, Morpheus, for the super chat. Massively appreciate. The same goes for the other super chatters, patrons, and channel members. So let's answer a few more questions. I have been streaming for quite some time already. Time flies when you're having fun. This will be the last stream for a couple of weeks, by the way. So, of course, for the next deadline stream in FPL, keep your eyes peeled 2 hours before the deadline. And for UCL Fantasy, the same thing. There's a lot of content headed your way, but for the next week, it'll be spaced out, as I am finally going to go on a holiday. For the first time in a long time, I haven't taken a hit this season. Was thinking Watkins to Wood this week for a hit. Sometimes not taking the risk is a good thing. Yeah, but sometimes taking the risk is it pays off. It's just a fine balance. You need a bit of luck as well to go your way in terms of timing. Between Liverpool and Barcelona, who has the better season? Barcelona. But Liverpool are doing really well. You can't underestimate it. Arguably in a stronger league too. I just think Madrid, City and Arsenal have all fallen off massively this season, which does help. But yeah, they've both been really good. There's no doubt about it. You could argue Liverpool because they haven't lost in the Champions League, whilst Barcelona have. So it's definitely close, mate. It really is. I'm just going to say Barcelona because they've scored so many goals. They beat Madrid 4-0 away from home. And I even said it a few weeks ago, even like 2 months ago, I think Barcelona will win the league this year. So yeah, I'll probably edge towards Barcelona. Should Mbappe play left wing and Vinicius right? No, because Vinicius scored a hat-trick the other day playing as left winger. He is the talisman of the team right now. And yeah, if anything, Mbappe should play right wing. His best football for France came as a right winger in the 2018 World Cup. So if anything, I'd put Mbappe on the right. The thing is, though, you still need a striker. And they bought Mbappe to be a striker. I think they'll get it right. It's just going to take a bit of time to gel fully. Not bad, thanks, as a deal. Yeah, it's not too shabby. It's not perfect. And by the way, if you got the funds, I'd upgrade Van den Berg to Joachim Andersen. But you could then argue the bench is too strong. So it's all a matter of perspective. Thanks, Dylan. Have a good holiday. Thank you very much, Adil. Hope you have a great week too. Sell up on Mbeumo Gameweek 14. Potentially Alfred. I'm not going to fully commit to it. I still think Mbeumo has a lot to offer. But let's put it this way. If I was wildcarding in 14 and making a video for it, I'd probably not have Mbeumo in there. But a lot could happen in the next 2 weeks. Yeah, DeSanta, you could basically see on screen. I'd go for something like this. Kanate, in my opinion. I just wanted to show a Trent draft that somebody asked for. So Kanate, Mizraoui, Gabriel, Nuri, and if possible, Joachim Andersen. That is what I'd go for. And then Cunha in for Strand Larsen. But yeah, something like this could definitely work. And I prefer Welbeck over Joao Pedro. I think with this, though, I'd have 0.1 million. Yeah, I'd be lacking a little bit of money. But yeah, I'll talk more about this in the best wildcard team video in a few days' time. Keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm going to go back to my normal team, back to reality. Is Brendan Johnson to Palmer for a -4 worth it? Yes, simply put. I think that Lille loss was a one-off game like Forest loss for Liverpool. Do you mean Monaco? Because it was Madrid who lost to Lille, same with Atletico Madrid. But yeah, Barca went down to 10 men against Monaco, which played a big part. Fabianski has got 1 extra bonus point added. Jesus, wow, fair play to those Fabianski owners. Gvardiol to Saliba. Gvardiol will get more attacking contributions, there's no doubt about it. I prefer Gabriel. If you can go to Gabriel, I'd recommend that. A lot of people are talking about selling Arsenal assets, especially defensively, so I'm surprised you're talking about that. But great fixtures coming up, and a lot of people still expect Arsenal to turn things around. Would you go for Isak and Bruno for Gameweek 12 or Welbeck and Bruno? For 12, I mean, it's basically Isak or Welbeck, then probably Isak, but I really like Welbeck, to be honest. Got 5.7 in the bank. Haaland to Isak. Yes, if you're going to buy Palmer, Salah, maybe another really good midfielder like Fernandes in for, let's say, McNeil. But yeah, I wouldn't just sell Haaland for the sake of it. I'd have a really good premium midfielder in mind to then upgrade as well. Worth keeping Son or selling for a hit to Bruno? I think Son can score against City. He's done it before, even last season at the Etihad. But I think Fernandes is the better option at the moment, and I keep on saying it. Salah, Palmer and Saka are the 3 best midfielders in the game for me. Thanks for your input last week. I took a 28-point hit this week with all my changes, got 94 points. Wow. I don't think you expected that, right? To get such a high score and arguably gain points with your transfers. Fair play. Yeah, I got confused with these French teams. No worries. Yeah, either way, Lille, by the way, have been very impressive. And Monaco have been fairly decent too, actually. So the French teams have been very, very on point, except PSG, surprisingly. Bring in Jackson or Saka. Saka if he's fit. Madrid also missing another defender. Yeah, Eder Militao. I think he sustained an ACL injury, and Rodrigo's out for a month. DeSanta says, I had done an early rage transfer in DCL to Strand Larsen during the last game week. Had I waited, I could have gone Cunha instead. Yeah, I'd done Vardy plus DCL to Wisser plus Strand Larsen. Yeah, look, sometimes being aggressive, just doing it can result in points gained, and sometimes it'll go against you. There's no like fine art or formula. FPL can sometimes come down to luck. I captained Bruno and ranked up 2 million. I got 99 points. Really good score. Fair play. I can review a team, but in terms of like putting team IDs and stuff, I'm not going to be able to do that. Maybe in another stream later, in a few weeks' time. But yeah, we will be wrapping up fairly soon. Foden to Saka for a -4. Long term, I think the hit pays off, but with Saka being yellow flagged, I currently say no. This may change in a week or two, and if you're asking me, I do think he starts, but I'm not 100% convinced. DJ says ditched Haaland but got Salah, Palmer, Isak, Fernandes, Saka and Boomer. Well, they all did really well this week. Well, most of them did well this week, and I do think Palmer and Saka will do really well for you. Just keep an eye out for the Saka injury. Not necessarily. I think Aït-Nouri blanks against Fulham. I think Fulham will score 2 or 3 goals, and you're then relying on an attacking return there. But that Asensio kid that replaced Militao was really good. Yeah, I think he got an assist as well, if I'm not mistaken. Is it worth taking Son out for Saka for a -4? Long term, I think yes. Once again, though, probably hold off until we know more about Saka's injury. Arteta said it's not looking good. Yeah, at DeSanta, I do wildcard videos pretty much every single match day, except for the match days where we have unlimited transfers and you can't use a chip like the Limitless or Wildcard. But as I mentioned before, this week, the plan is to do the transfer tips for Gameweek 12 in FPL, the best wildcard team, and then my transfer plans video. Then in the following week, possibly updated versions if I have the time, and then the team selection, of course, the deadline stream, reaction stream, and for UCL Fantasy, Limitless, Wildcard, team selection, and of course, live streams as well. 94 points -4 selling Rodgers for Bruno. Wow, that's a great rank rise, fair play, and a great transfer. I also sold Rodgers, but for Salah. Fernandes, unfortunately, I didn't go there, but fair play to those that did. Ramos back to Madrid short term since another defender for Madrid injury. Basically, they have one fit defender. I did see somewhere, I'm not sure if the report is called Jorge Luis. I need to double check, but he's apparently reliable, and he said Madrid aren't looking at Ramos. We'll wait and see. I don't think Bruno will get 17 points. I think Palmer and Salah will outscore him, just to be quite clear. Same with Haaland. But he's still a good choice. I might be wrong. And maybe the shackles are off, like Sahil says. I personally think there are better options elsewhere for Gameweek 12 for the captaincy, but I might buy him. I'll be honest, I might buy him. Only Foden to Palmer or also Son to Bruno for a -4. It might backfire because City Spurs does seem like a high-scoring game on paper. I take the -4 hit right now. Best midfielder at 5 million and under. 5 million and under. I think Buonanotte is a little bit higher than that. Let me check. Yeah, probably Buonanotte still. I'll try to give you another name, though. I think there could be somebody even better. So just give me a second. No. Damsgaard. I mean, someone bought him recently and did very well. Yeah, for me, it's probably Buonanotte or Damsgaard. But not a big fan of buying Brentford assets. Of course, Wisser and Mbeumo are kind of exceptions. They're really good choices long term, but they do have a fixture swing in Gameweek 14 for the worse, which I'm a bit concerned about. So I think I'd stick with Buonanotte with that answer. Should I sell Palmer for Saka? No, do not sell Palmer. Saka's actually an injury doubt right now. Arteta said the injury is serious. I think he'll play, but just keep an eye out for it. Do not sell Palmer. If anything, I'd buy him. Yeah, Dallow's worth keeping. Will Foden start next week? As things stand, I believe so. But I also think De Bruyne will, and that could actually impact Foden's minutes. Selling Haaland or Solanke or Dalot this week? I'd keep Dalot. Haaland is technically a hold. It just depends on what you can do by selling him. If you don't have Palmer and Salah, and you can buy both, then yeah, I'd sell Haaland all day long. But I don't know your team, so it's difficult for me to say. I said a few weeks ago Solanke's a sell for me, and the best time to do it on paper is probably Gameweek 12. But the way City are defending, I think Solanke could do something. Solanke to Jackson or Foden to Saka? If he's fit, I'd buy Saka. I don't usually take hits, but I'm thinking Bruno could do well against Amrim. Again with Amrim. Yeah, that's why I'm looking at either Saka or Bruno in for Foden this week, and then buying Welbeck for Solanke to then give me enough money to buy Konate and Mazraoui. So I'm kind of thinking quite similar to you. Henderson. I think Henderson is worth selling, but I'm not a big fan of goalkeeper transfers. Lexi says Haaland to Cunha. Roger to Bruno for a hit. I think I answered your question earlier or highlighted it. But yeah, really good transfers overall. 94 points is a great score and a fantastic captaincy shout as well. I don't know. I think Mazraoui will start over him at right back when our left backs are back. Yeah, maybe I'm thinking about it a bit too narrow-minded, but the Portuguese connection, maybe Dalot gets a bit of preference there. But I did say something similar about Gakpo, and that hasn't really been the case with Arne Slot, has it? I hope that's the case because Mazraoui is my favourite United defender, actually, and he is my best wildcard team at the moment. Ox Nemo says, hopefully I'm not, okay, whatever. I'm thinking of selling Mbeumo for a Chelsea midfielder. The only Chelsea midfielder I recommend is Palmer. I don't like Pedro Neto. I don't like the others, if I'm being completely honest. The way I'd rank Chelsea assets is Palmer first, Jackson second, Sanchez third. I'm not looking at anybody else, to be honest. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It's been a pleasure talking to you for the past 2 hours. If you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's try to get this stream to as close to 200 likes as possible, and let's keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. By this time next month, we're looking to get to that goal of 30k subscribers with all the Use Your Fantasy content headed our way. Of course, a lot of reception there with the live streams and videos, which is always appreciated. Keep your eyes peeled for FPL and Use Your Fantasy videos over the next couple of weeks. I will be spacing out some content even when I'm on holiday. I wish you all the best of luck for Gameweek 12 and the rest of the season. Enjoy the international break, if that's even possible. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships, for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks, the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. Jezza says I'm wildcarding. That's really good. Keep your eyes peeled for the wildcard video. That could really help you. I think Gameweek 12 is a great opportunity for those that haven't wildcarded yet. Thank you, Morpheus, once again, especially for the super chat and all your contributions to the chat today. Thank you, Oxnamo, as well. I'll see you very soon. Easy99 says Mazraoui could be centre back in their free defender system with Shaw as the left wing back. That's a good point. I do think when Yoro's back, though, it will be a back three of Lisandro Martinez, De Ligt, and Yoro. Good luck, Dylan. Enjoy your vacation. See you next time. Likewise, Sahil. Nicely done in FPL, and hopefully the green arrows keep on coming. Take care. Twister Parky as well, and everybody else watching. Michael says best goalkeeper until Gameweek 20. Currently have Flecken. Need to swap him. Leno's a shout, to be fair, but my top three would probably be Onana, Sanchez, and Verbruggen. The only reason Sanchez will be my wildcard team right now is because I've also got Mazraoui in that wildcard team, and I don't want to double up on United defensively. We'll talk more about this in the upcoming videos. Keep your eyes peeled for the transfer tips, best wildcard team, and my transfer plans, and of course the team selection in the following week. You can even see updated versions of some of those videos as well, with all the latest information for Gameweek 12 and beyond. Take care, enjoy the football. I'll see you very soon, and I hope you have a great week and season. Yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. I'll see you very soon.